Mr. Keir Starmer, and then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person quite sick this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Oh, no, I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so many to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question to I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, do you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's 3 minutes past 6. I'm Mike Graham. It is Monday, the 2nd of June. Believe it or not, we've already crossed into yet another month. The summer is upon us. The sun is shining. It's sort of blinding us all through the window here. We've had to put the blinds down because it's that nice here in London on the 17th floor of the News UK Tower. Of course, what I'd like to say is that the week is looking fabulous. The week is looking great. The week is looking really optimistic. There's a lot to look forward to. But I'm afraid I can't say that to you because it's going to be raining from tomorrow. And after a few hours of this today, we're going to be listening to Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, unveiling his security defence review. And you can tell what it's going to be like by looking at the front page of the Daily Mail. Labour's defence spending retreat as key military review is published. Ministers accused of a U-turn on a crucial funding pledge. The Daily Telegraph's version of it is Starmer's defence strategy in disarray. Defence Secretary, that's John Healey, who was out and about yesterday, we'll play you some of what he said, backtracks on a pledge to boost military spending by 3%. Once again, it's all smoke and mirrors, I'm afraid. There is a pledge out there to build 12 nuclear submarines. We're told that we need to be put on a war footing with Russia. According to John Healey, Russia is attacking this country every single day. He was making all sorts of sabre-rattling noises yesterday about how we must, in fact, be ready for war. But the trouble is, if you're going to build 12 nuclear submarines, which is apparently what we're now going to do, I think that's going to take quite a while, isn't it? So you'll be on a war footing. There'll be lots and lots of people employed to build lots and lots of submarines, but I can't imagine them being finished between now and, say, the next 10 years. We'll be talking about all of that coming up. Plus, of course, more importantly, certainly for most people listening and watching this show, the Defence Secretary John Healey has admitted that Britain has lost control of its borders after so many people arrived. Remember I said, I predicted of over 1,000 people would come to this country in one day, probably before the beginning of July. So it happened even earlier than I thought. 1,194 people crossed the English Channel on Saturday alone. We're still waiting for the figure from Sunday, when it was also pretty calm. A little bit windier than it was on Saturday, but no doubt out. We're going to be seeing thousands and thousands more people coming in this month of June alone. And quite simply, boats arriving like taxis, it says on the front page of the Daily Express. Lots of other stories as well. Emma Wolf is here to help us go through the news. Morning to you, Emma. We've got all sorts of other stories to talk about as well, including junior doctors who, of course, want to go on strike. They're looking to get a 30% pay rise. They're already said to be better off than they were 10 years ago. We've got Lindsay Hoyle once again living the high life. He spent £5,500 on planes flying around the Caribbean. Private planes, no doubt, jumping from one island to another. Marvellous, isn't it? And also, what about Lord Hermer? This is the guy who is Attorney General of this country. He is, in fact, Keir Starmer's best mate. He's under an awful lot of pressure to leave the job, and Starmer's under a lot of pressure to fire him, and I think he should do it. According to Harry Cole from The Sun, he is toast. Because guess what? His fingerprints were all over the Lucy Connelly jailing, and yet he didn't show anything like that kind of difficulty and hardness to rapists and paedophiles. This is Morning Glory, and that's where we are. Emma Wolf, very good morning to you. Hard not to see all of this, heavy defence stuff going on this morning in the papers, and there was a lot of it around yesterday with John Healey. But you can't help feeling this is all a bit like Keir Starmer playing soldiers, isn't it?
It is. Why is John Healey out there, as you say, sabre-rattling?
Yeah.
Why is... They haven't even launched the Strategic Defence Review yet. It hasn't even launched, and already...
It's still in dry dock.
It's still in dry dock. I think he's launching it at a dockyard.
Yeah.
No doubt there'll be about 3 fishermen who've been paid a fiver to stand around and look really enthusiastic. It hasn't even been launched, and it's already falling apart. The wheels are coming off. They're in disarray. The pledge has become an ambition. An ambition. This thing. Do you think Putin's really, really terrified about this? And, Mike, what's really getting to me is this is their 10-year defence spending review, and I'm thinking... I think in 10 years' time, this whole period will just be like a bad nightmare. It'll be a bad dream, like a bad hangover you look back on and think, oh, that was not a good night.
Do you remember when we used to think that Labour could actually run a country?
Do you remember when Labour were in charge for I don't know, a year? Wasn't that a terrible time? Look at all the damage they did. Maybe we'll never get, maybe they won't be even in existence in 10 years' time.
Well, one of the things that's obviously an ambition which they're not going to reach is the next Parliament, because they keep saying that this 3% spend on GDP on defence is going to happen by the next Parliament. Well, that's already 4 years away. Yeah. That's ridiculous. If we're supposed to be on a war footing because Russia is threatening us right now, in 4 years' time, we might have been obliterated, presumably.
Well, exactly.
What's the point?
What is the point? And also, I think you made a really good point. They haven't said anything about what happened over the weekend when we topped, well over 1,000 people crossing on Saturday. Yeah. We don't have the numbers from Sunday yet. Nearly 1,200 people. The photographs on Saturday and Sunday of those overloaded dinghies with fit, strong young men, mostly young men, coming over here, some of them with their faces covered, smoking on dinghies, coming over here, pretty much being escorted by the French police, certainly the French border police, watching, just standing and watching, some of them filming it on phones.
So, I mean, they're not really qualified to be called small boats anymore. You can see the French police there standing, actually taking pictures as they wave au revoir.
And we are giving them nearly £1 billion, £500 million over the 3-year period. Right. And the French, even lefties now, are admitting the French are doing nothing with that money.
And we're being told, oh, don't worry, they're going to change their rules in France so that the police can actually go into the water. But what are they going to do?
That's going to terrify the people smugglers.
Yeah, but what are they going into the water to do? The French don't want them there. They want them to go
They want them to get them out.
Allez.
Bon voyage.
That way. Off you go. Yeah. We don't want to see you. So what idiot? It was a Tory idiot, I think, that came up with the idea of giving them money to stop them from coming. And, of course, they've never stopped them from coming.
It's never stopped them. There's no... And people talk about, well, what's happening in their countries, da-da-da-da-da. We are just a soft touch. There is no deterrent. No. They're coming here because they can, because they will be welcomed and given all the other things that we've talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is very clear now. And also, when you look at those boats, it's quite a professional operation.
Oh, it's a very professional operation.
This is not young men big families clinging to sort of wooden vessels that are drifting into our waters. These are big, what do they call them, RIBs? These are...
Oh, they're military strength boats. You could invade a country with these boats.
Seriously. And how are they getting launched? And how are they getting transported down to Calais? It's just absolutely
ludicrous. And since the election, the new number now is 38,053, just since Labour got in.
Exactly. And it's thought that even just this year, I think we're up to nearly 15,000 this year. It could, and you said, 1,000 a day, 1,200... Nearly 1,200 on Saturday. And I looked up how many babies are born every day in this country. 1,600 babies. So we're getting to the point where the amount of people born in this country, when you have a day like Saturday, You can't go on like this. And
an
why
awful
we're
lot of
running
those
out
babies
water.
that are born in this country will already have parents who were not born in this country,
Exactly.
because that is also a big
And when
thing.
you ask, where are the women and children on those boats? Where are the people fleeing war-torn countries? They say, oh, but it's not safe for them to come. Well, what are they doing then?
Well,
They
it's
leave
safe
your
for them to
women and
stay where they
children in
are.
an unsafe country,
Yeah.
cross over here, by the way, through France, which is a safe country, through all of Europe, which is a safe...
It doesn't compute, does it? Let's see what
really
John
doesn't.
Healey said. I mean, this is him yesterday talking on TV. He's the Defence Secretary, saying we've lost control of our borders.
Pretty shocking, those scenes yesterday. The truth is, Britain's lost control of its borders over the last 5 years. And the last government last year left an asylum system in chaos and record levels of immigration. I think yesterday tells us a really big problem, which is you've got French police unable to intervene and intercept the boats when they're in shallow waters. That means we saw it. We saw the smugglers launching elsewhere and coming round like a taxi to pick them up. Now, one of the steps, and this is a complex problem, but one of the steps we've now got is the cooperation, new cooperation with the French, and an agreement. They'll change the rules so the police can intervene in the water as well as on the shore, and that will help to make a difference.
How is it going to make a difference? Intervene to do what? What, to arrest them?
Absolutely.
For doing what?
Pathetic.
What are you going to do? Arrest somebody for leaving the country? How can you arrest somebody for leaving the country?
Of course you can't.
It's a bit different from smashing the gangs, though, isn't it?
I was going to say, what was
They
the
forgot
original
about
thing?
that.
Smash the gangs.
Yeah.
So what, you were going to go to the source and you
Yeah.
were going to sort out the people smuggling
Smash
gangs.
the gangs.
But do you remember he did find that Turkish bloke who was the brother of someone who made a fan that went inside it. I mean, what was all that about? That was a big announcement.
Yeah.
That was one guy
Yeah.
about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Well, that's clearly had a really deterrent effect on the
I
gangs.
know. Absolutely ridiculous. And Starmer keeps... we've got a video which we'll play later, which he talks about, you know, secure at home, strong abroad. I mean, we're not secure at home because we can't even secure our own borders. You've got the Defence Secretary, the Secretary of State for Defence in this country, saying we've lost control of our borders.
We've lost control. And this big thing they're launching today, their strategic review...
Yeah.
You are right. People are so much more concerned about what is actually happening now on a daily basis to our borders,
Exactly.
our actual borders, not this nebulous idea of, you know, yeah, of course there's a nuclear threat. Of course we've got to be thinking long-term about Russia. Of course, all of that.
Yeah.
But right now, what's happening?
But that's a constant, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a constant. We should be on top of that anyway.
Yeah.
We should be investing this anyway. You can't
Right.
build all this stuff, as you say, within 5 years, let alone 10 years,
Right.
probably.
I've no idea how long it takes to build a submarine,
I
but
don't
I'm
know.
pretty sure
That's a while.
it takes them a long time to build a house in this country. I think a submarine's probably a bit more complicated, isn't it?
Exactly, an HMS this, that and the other. They take...
It's got to be waterproof
They
and
take
everything.
years. No, I mean, I think this is a complete joke. And the fact is, people are crossing right now. They're not saying much about that except for, oh, it's out of control.
Yeah, it's out of control. And, I mean, this is only the beginning of summer. You know, we've got the whole of June to go, 2nd of June today. I mean, potentially, you could be looking at, say, another 3,000 to 4,000 to 5,000 maybe between now and the end of the month. I mean, that is a low estimate, I would say. And that will push the numbers up to sort of towards 50,000.
Exactly.
Since Labour got in.
Especially when you have good weather.
The year anniversary of them getting in on July the 4th, I reckon we're going to be not far off 50,000 that have come.
By
illegally.
July?
Yeah.
That's a bold prediction.
It is a bold prediction.
They're saying 50,000 for the year, but you think we could be there by July. Well, maybe. And I think all of this, these images, just embolden the people trying to cross.
Yeah.
Because they can see it. Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening to stop them.
Right. And when they see that many people successfully reaching the other side, then they're going to... Why on earth wouldn't they go for it? You know, of course they're going to do that. But this government's strategy seems to be all wrong. It's a bit like, you know, we found out at the weekend that the vaping, it's now illegal to sell disposable vapes, right? But instead of just stopping selling them, they told everybody we're not going to be selling them after Sunday. So what do you think happened? So all the retailers discounted them. So all of the disposable vapes in the country have now been bought up by the people who are now going to smoke them even though they're illegal.
There's also evidence that people are getting around the rules on that. You can call them electronic rechargeable devices. I mean, Labour are not even honest on that one.
No.
That was going to be one of their big strategies.
Right.
Do you remember they were going to get children off screens? Oh, no, that's been watered down.
Everything's watered down.
Everything is watered down. Oh, we're gonna go after the wealthy. Oh, guess what? Actually, now we've got loads of mates in the city. We're not going to do that. We're not going to.
Yeah.
I just think they don't even have the courage of their convictions.
No. they're just coming out with stuff now, which is, you know, I call it the lie of the day. Every time Keir Starmer puts out one of these ridiculous tweets, we can just absolutely name it that, because the front pages are all full of the story, but lots of commentary as well. Philip Ingram, who's a good friend of ours here at Talk, has written in the Mail, the Minister's confusion on funding betrays the disarray at the heart of the MOD, and he's talking about how this is supposed to be a root and branch review of our military policy. However, Defence Secretary can't decide whether the target of 3% from the current 2.3% is going to actually happen. It's now an ambition, as you say, and it's an aim. So it won't ever get there. And Andrew Neil's written a piece as well. As Prime Minister faces rebellion over child benefit cap, Labour MPs are turning against their robotic, insipid leader. Starmer is shifting leftwards to save his own skin. I mean, you know, nothing much changes, does it? Nothing much changes, and the only time he's happy is when he's abroad giving away our money, I'm afraid.
You know, when he's giving billions more to Ukraine or whatever it is. Meanwhile, people in this country are facing water shortages. Oh, by the way, if you want to give your kids a bath, you know, I mean,
they're talking about tax on water. We'll come to that in a minute. Let's have a look on number 10's tweet on defence.
First goal is always the safety and security of the United Kingdom. And that's why we're boosting defence spending, the largest sustained increase since the Cold War. An increase of £13.4 billion year on year. Not just meeting our commitment to spend 2.5% of our GDP on defence, but bringing it forward to 2027. And alongside that, a new ambition for defence spending to rise to 3% of GDP in the next Parliament. We'll publish a strategic defence review to determine how we can best meet the threats of today and return Britain to war-fighting readiness. Secure at home, strong abroad.
Sorry, secure at home. The guy who had his own house firebombed, right? I'm sorry. Strong abroad, really?
1,200 people coming in illegally was secure at home.
Yeah. Apparently Russia's got 65 nuclear submarines, and we're going to build 12.
And
How
also,
long is that going to take?
Not returning this country to peace, we're turning this country to a wartime...
Yeah, what's he talking about?
To war-fighting readiness.
Yeah. What's he talking about?
I really don't know.
Embarrassing yesterday at one point, John Healey was asked about the coalition of the willing.
Yes.
He didn't really know what to say, because it's like the slogans come and go. They kind of go,
yeah, I know, exactly. Oh, but that one, that's been wrongly interpreted. We don't use that one anymore.
We don't want to talk about that.
No.
I mean, it is absolutely staggering how completely facile so many of these messages now are, because every time you look at any message that comes out of number 10 Downing Street or Keir Starmer's account, all you see is an absolute barrage of abuse, because nobody...
No, I know. Every single tweet.
Yeah, every single one.
Every single one.
Yeah.
Anything he says is now absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
And justifiably. It's not just nasty trolls online.
No.
Every single one says, but how can you say this when you literally can't even keep our border safe, for example?
Exactly.
You know, how can you say this when you've just taken all millions from pensioners and you know, it just, he's an absolute joke, this man.
It's disingenuous.
How can he go on?
I know.
And then you look at the people around him. You look at Rachel Reeves, who doesn't have an economic shred of expertise in her body. You look at you look at his, who's a guy, Lindsay Hoyle, just travelling around taking the absolute mickey, which I know we're going to talk about.
We're going to talk about that later.
You look at Lord Hermer.
Lord Hermer's in the dock. He could be out of a job by the end of the week.
This is astonishing.
Yeah. We'll come to that in a second.
Exactly.
Because first I want to remind you of the last time that Keir Starmer was actually on a submarine. You might remember this. I'm sorry. I see no ships. Anyway, so that's Monday for you. Much to say, there he is. Starmer's looking out there.
Was he looking for voters?
He's looking for any voters that actually want to actually vote for him anymore. He can't find them. Emma Wolf is here. We've got lots more to talk about, including, of course, High Life Hoyle, as he's now called, and exactly how he's been spending £5,500 of our money. Also, we'll be talking some more about the fishing deal that we've got with the European Union. Should we even have it anymore? 19 minutes past 6. We'll be back after this.
Well, don't forget the woke DEI agenda in the armed forces as well. There's a great joke that goes around the United States where they say, you know, the easiest way to work out whether we're at serious risk of military intervention or a military escalation is when the ads for recruitment go from, you know, the DEI rainbow flags to just seeing young working class white blokes with guns saying, come and fight for us, because then, you know, things are getting serious once again.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 21 minutes past 6. I'm Mike Graham. It is a brand new month, it's a brand new week, it's a brand new day. It's Monday, June the 2nd, ladies and gentlemen, and I can't quite believe we've already hit the summer months. But Wolf is here with us. I don't know where May went.
Where has the year gone? It's going to soon be Christmas, you know that?
I know.
We're in June.
You're going to start doing your early Christmas shopping.
Stop it.
Now, how about this? Keir Starmer, of course, is launching the Defence Review today, which apparently is going to decide how much money we're going to spend on defence in this Parliament and the next one. I don't know why he's bothering with the next Parliament, because he's not going to be running it, is he? I mean, there's no way in 2029 Labour wins the next election.
I really, really hope they are not even, that we don't even talk about Labour in 10 years' time, that they're just a bad, bad memory.
Yeah, exactly right. Let's get a voice note from Andy.
Morning, Mike. Hi, Emma. It's Andy from Birmingham. Do you remember when Keith Starmer said, "We're gonna smash the gangs"? Well, there's one massive smuggling gang, and it's called France. Start there, work backwards. Great day. Have a good day, mate. Bye.
Allez les Bleus. I mean, Paris.
Allez les Bleus. I love that.
Paris
Start there, work backwards.
Work backwards, yeah. Paris Saint-Germain obviously won the Champions League at the weekend as well, and there was a massive riot. A couple of people died. I mean, this is what
Terrible.
the French do. It's really awful stuff. But, you know, the French police are not shy when they start piling into their own people.
There were over 5,000 police.
Yeah, normally they're very happy to go storming in and smashing people around with batons and all sorts of things, but for some reason they leave the people smugglers alone.
Too frightened. They were just looking at them, weren't they?
Yeah,
literally
exactly.
filming it on their phones.
Exactly. But let's remember, you know, one of the greatest hits. We like Keir Starmer's greatest hits. Here he is on Smashing the Gangs. Check it out.
You will have helped to smash the gangs, secure our borders, and save countless lives. Smash the criminal gangs, and they are criminal gangs, that are running this vile trade and putting people in the boats. Take those gangs down. I think smashing the gangs that are taking people's money is a deterrent. I think you have to smash those gangs. The only way to stop that is to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade. Smash the gangs.
Yeah, he says it. He says it well, but nothing's happened. The gangs are still going. In fact, if anything, the gangs are even bigger. In fact, the one guy they've locked up, apart from your guy with the outboard motor, is the guy who the Tories actually arrested in 2023 and who was finally sent to prison for 25 years. They tried to claim that. They were like, we've smashed the gangs, we found someone who was an Iraqi, I think, people smuggler, who came to this country, was living here, his family are living here, paid for by the taxpayer, in a home provided by the taxpayer. He's now gone to prison, also paid for by the taxpayer, and nothing has changed. And they have not arrested one gang member.
They haven't smashed a single gang.
No.
It's just utterly meaningless, everything that comes out of Starmer's mouth.
Yeah, it is absolutely ridiculous. Let's talk about Lord Hermer, though, refusing to review unduly lenient sentences in the Telegraph today given to a rapist, a paedophile and a terrorist fundraiser, despite what we found out at the weekend, signing off on the prosecution of Lucy Connelly. So we now know there's a direct connection between Lucy Connelly's long and very harsh sentence and Lord Hermer, right?
This is really, really shocking. When you look at the details of these cases, his department refused to review the sentences. So a rapist was given 28 months in prison for raping a woman in her home. Their decision was also made not to review the case of Jamie Daniels, who was attempting to incite a 13-year-old girl to engage in sexual activity. Yeah. He was given 21 months. and then a terrorist who was also, his case, less than 31 months, less than the Lucy Connelly benchmark, although I don't know why the hell that's a benchmark. She is still in prison 2.5 years for a tweet that she shouldn't have sent. The other thing is, do you remember him, Lord Hermer, apologising a few days ago for clumsy language?
So-called clumsy language. It's not an apology. This is when he was accused of being ridiculous because he claimed that anyone who wanted to get rid of the ECHR was basically a Nazi.
Was more than ridiculous, but anyway, so he explained it away, didn't apologise, as clumsy language. But when she tweets something that she shouldn't have tweeted and then deletes it, that's not okay. There is no forgiveness there, but he's forgiven and able to carry on in his job.
And you have to know, I mean, people say this from if they're on the side of Starmer and his ilk, they say, oh, well, everybody knows it's not a political decision because, you know, politicians aren't allowed to get involved in judicial matters. Well, absolute rubbish. You can imagine the conversation that went on between Lord Hermer and Keir Starmer. They're two of the closest friends. They're both human rights lawyers. They both decided to smash the right-wing thuggery, even though it was ruled that wasn't the case. So let's lock up a housewife and make an example of her.
And they left a few days between the case and then the sentencing. They discussed it. There wasn't an immediate decision.
Right.
And this, it's just clear. It's clear that the Lucy Connelly case is about sending out a message.
And it's
about showing us
again, isn't it?
who's in charge. It's about making people frightened. And I know you're not frightened, but I know lots of people like me, like other journalists who just are now much more cautious about what we say because this kind of thing is really scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I'm glad to see that ex-PC down in Kent as well, a £20,000 payout after he was arrested by the police and held in a cell for about 8 hours because of something that he had written, which wasn't even offensive, for heaven's sake. Even by any measure, was not an offensive tweet, you know?
It's absolutely Orwellian, the way that people are being treated in this country, and then we wonder why we don't have police out on the streets policing the actual streets.
Yeah, right. And according to the piece in the Telegraph, these 3 criminals who received softer sentences than Connelly, as I said, a rapist, a paedophile and a terrorist fundraiser, basically were not referred by the Attorney General, which means that his office said that they did not meet the unduly lenient threshold set by the Court of Appeal. For a punishment to pass that test, it must fall outside the range of sentences which the judge, applying his mind to all the relevant factors, could reasonably consider appropriate. So, I mean, it's a ridiculous situation. Harry Cole this morning has tweeted out, or late last night rather, saying Lord Hermer is toast. Now, I think if the political editor of The Sun says that, and John Healey yesterday refused to say that his job was safe, I think he's a bit of trouble.
I know, and you can say, well, it wasn't his decision, and the sentencing of Lucy Connelly isn't his decision, and all of that. But I think when you put it all together with Lord Hermer and his close relationship with the Prime Minister and everything...
It stinks,
it absolutely stinks how this man can continue.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's go back to another news story from the weekend, and this is somebody we haven't seen for a long time, and this might surprise you. Greta Thunberg, right? Remember the little elfin
how can one forget her?
Little elfin woman who wanted to save the planet. Well, she's given up on saving the planet.
You are burning the planet. You are burning our world.
How dare you?
How dare you?
How dare you?
I'm 12 years old. How dare you burn? You're killing us.
Yeah. She's now 20-something, I think, isn't she? Anyway, she's now on a boat. 22 years of age, sailing to Gaza. Check this out.
Hello, I am currently standing on the Madeleine, the ship that on Sunday, June 1st, will attempt to again sail towards Gaza and to try to break the siege and open up a humanitarian corridor by delivering aid, like, even if the odds are against us, to try to protest and do everything we can to stand against Israel's atrocities and war crimes and to support and stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine. So keep your eyes on deck, continue flooding the streets, organize, boycott and do everything in your power to stand for Palestine.
What's he going to do with her?
Wow.
Hey? She's on a boat, a flotilla, heading towards Gaza. I would suggest that that's probably not the most sensible course of action. If you want to flood the streets in Stockholm, that might be a better idea. But if you want to go actually into Gaza and create a humanitarian corridor, there's some people called Hamas there who don't really like women very much and are quite likely to kill you and or take you prisoner and or rape you.
Yeah, I think I preferred her as a really annoying child.
Yeah.
She's incredibly annoying, isn't it? Is she an adult, or is she just going to stay a child, man-child forever, girl-child
I
forever?
don't really know. I mean, it's very odd, isn't it? She doesn't look 22, but here's the thing. I put out a tweet that just said, you know, climate change is so last year. Let's just move on to Gaza now, shall we?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, because I presume the flotilla is made up of ships which are not only powered by sail, are they? I presume they're powered by diesel engines, aren't they? I think they'd be very smart. It'd be very stupid if they're not. But, you know, there we are. Let's talk about the fishing deal. That's the front page of the Telegraph as well, because Chris Philp, the deputy, or rather the shadow Home Secretary, has said that Britain should suspend this fishing deal that we've got with the European Union until France stops the migrant channel crossings. Seems like a no-brainer to me, doesn't it? But, of course, Starmer presumably won't do it.
No, of course he won't do it. Yeah, this is Chris Philp, the shadow Home Secretary. He's challenging the government in the Commons to halt the controversial fishing deal. But, I mean, France are doing nothing. Absolutely, blooming, absolutely...
Sweet FA.
I was thinking of the French term, but it was a bit rude as well. Yeah.
Zut alors.
Well, at least our fishermen are busy fishing people out of the channel because, as people have pointed out, they've got nothing else.
I saw a piece in the paper yesterday, and I don't really eat it very much, so I can't say whether I'm going to miss it. But turbot, apparently, as a fish, has become so expensive that even really expensive restaurants aren't serving it anymore because they have to charge so much money for it because the price of fish has literally gone through the roof.
That's crazy. Yeah,
you know?
we went fishing last week, and my little 4-year-old pulled out
you didn't get a turbot, did you?
A carp.
Oh.
That was 25 kilos.
Wow.
And Ludo himself is 19, so he literally had this carp.
That's amazing.
Absolutely massive. The great thing about fishing, I didn't realise, Mike, you probably know
Where
all
is
this.
Where were you fishing?
In Homersfield, in Suffolk, on the Suffolk-Norfolk border.
Right.
And the great thing about it is that you can sort of look at the fish and you have it in the little fish bed thing, and they're fine for a bit.
Right.
I mean, you can actually see the fish, and I thought you had to pull them out, quickly put them back in and back in the water.
Okay.
They're okay. They're okay.
So you put them back at the end?
Catfish, bigger than your producer, Christian. I mean, catfish are absolutely huge, aren't they?
They are.
They're bigger than...
They're not very tasty, though.
Adult males.
They're
oh,
not
no,
very
and they're
tasty.
disgusting, and they've got these whiskers and everything. It's a whole new world.
Yeah, it is. Well, wait till you get into sea fishing.
Oh,
that's even more interesting.
Is it?
Yeah, because that's really quite exciting. It's 6:32. We've got loads more to talk about, including how pupils can apparently pass their maths GCSE without knowing anything about maths. Incredible. It wouldn't surprise you. And a British cyclist has won the Giro d'Italia. I know we don't normally do sport here, but I mean, I think, given that I always give a hard time to cyclists, I thought you might want to give a nod to this guy. We'll do more of that, 6:32.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:33. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. It is June, Monday the 2nd of June to be precise. Emma Wolf is here. Let's get a quick voice note from Nick.
Morning, Mike. Nick Moore from Loughborough. The government's sabre rattling is the oldest trick in the book. It's deflection. If you worry the population about a perceived threat from overseas, they soon stop thinking about the mayhem that's being caused at their own hands, the government's own hands, in this country. Simple as that. Have a good day, mate.
Thank you very much indeed. It's all smoke and mirrors. I mean, you could given one sort of version of events and it turns out that something else is actually true.
Absolutely. I mean, to what Nick says, I completely agree with him. They're deflecting, they're saying, but I don't think people are buying it. No one is actually really, really, really worrying about the long... Well, plenty of people are, but right now people aren't talking about the long-term threat from Russia, a nuclear threat.
No,
they're talking about what the heck happens in the Channel yesterday.
And
or
why
they're
are all
looking
these
at those
young men
photos.
walking down
Why
my
are
high
they
street?
walking down my high street? What happens when they land, Mike? I would love to know, really. Oh, they're taken in for processing and it's just not true. So many of them disappear.
Yes. Well, I've been saying for a very long time, because I know the South Coast pretty well. I go down there most weekends.
Yeah.
There are lots of places that boats can land that are nowhere near Dover, where the land is very flat, where the beach is very flat, and people have told me that they've seen them do it. You literally land a dinghy on the beach, you get out the dinghy, you walk into the town. That's it. Never to be seen again.
Never to be seen again.
And some of them who go into hotels walk out of the hotels and are never to be seen again. Nobody knows where any of them are, really. I mean, that's part of the problem.
Of course, that's a massive part of the problem, this whole nonsense about the processing, as if we should... I mean, we shouldn't anyway be spending millions on processing people who haven't... I mean, when I go to France or Italy, when you go to America, you go through security.
Yeah.
You show a passport.
Yeah.
We know how you get into a country legally, and we know that when you arrive on a boat like that, that is illegal.
Right.
And people get all up in arms when you talk about an invasion, but they're coming into the country illegally.
Like an invasion.
It is like
that many
all
people.
Invasion means is in and then Vade, invasion. They're coming into the country.
38,000 so far. 38,000 plus. 38,500.
Oh, but what about the last 14 years?
Yeah.
Oh, da, da, da.
Well, it's only really been bad since about 2019, when Boris Johnson said he was going to get it all down to 20,000. That's another story. Breaking story overnight, over in Colorado. 8 people have been injured in an attack by a pro-Palestinian individual who was chucking petrol bombs and flamethrowers around at a pro-Israel rally in Boulder. Check this out.
He's making Molotov cocktails. And for us? Well, we can't do it when he's got Molotov cocktails in. If you are fighting, you have to. That's what he's got right here. Is Molotov cocktails. They are killers. Get back.
For those of you who can't see that because you're listening on the radio, he's a guy walking around without his shirt on, carrying 2 Molotov cocktails and sort of chucking them around the place. He's since been arrested. He's a pro-Palestinian activist, apparently, in a place called Boulder, Colorado. I mean, it tells you this whole kind of, intifada business is going on everywhere.
Boulder is an amazing place.
Yeah, I bet. I've been to Colorado. I've never
Absolutely
been
love Colorado.
to Boulder. Yeah, it's a very cool place. But it's the last place you'd expect to see a pro-Palestinian protest, isn't it?
Well, I can see a pride flag in the background.
Oh, yeah.
I think that month is launching.
Yeah, I know. Virgin Radio, by the way, Ryan Tubridy, who's the mid-morning host there, of course, he's done an interview with former President Bill Clinton. Have a listen to this.
We just have to, there are no guarantees in life and in politics, public event. There are no permanent victories or defeats. You just have to show up and suit up and stand up for what you think is right. And we still have a chance to do that. I think this is a fairly perilous time. But I also think we're still the best positioned country for the 21st century if we just suck it up and work together.
OK, sounds like democratic policy to me.
Yeah.
But you can hear all of that interview. It's going to be available to view in full on Virgin Radio's UK YouTube channel from later on this morning, so keep an eye out for that. In terms of big stories on the front pages this morning, The Sun has got an unusual one. Liz Truss flogging whiskey for ex-con in Scunthorpe. That's one of those stories you go, blimey, better check this out. Former PM Liz Truss filmed a video with a bare-knuckle fighter jailed for GBH to launch his Irish whiskey brand. Looks like an April Fool, doesn't it?
Well, I walked into the building, I saw this headline on The Sun, I thought, blimey, is that what she's doing now to earn a few quid?
Yeah.
I think it's a lovely headline, it's a funny story, and it's very Liz Truss, isn't it?
Yeah.
She's always out and about with funny characters.
Yeah, apparently she went to some kind of place, went to Scunthorpe to help them sort of with their regeneration or something.
Something like that, and I think that maybe she did a selfie with this guy who actually, I believe, has rehabilitated himself. He's actually gone straight and all of that, which is what we want.
His time.
He's served his time. No one is condoning GBH. He served his time, and he's launching this not Well, I wouldn't drink it. I'm not going to say not very nice looking whiskey.
I mean, he's following in the footsteps of Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor, who, of course, has got his own controversies to his name, has got his own
they
whiskey.
do this for a living. No wonder they're all being arrested for GBH.
I know. I mean, he's got...
Not that surprising.
He's got some pretty good-looking turkey teeth as well, this guy. I mean, I probably shouldn't say that. He might come for me next. But apparently, he's served his time and he's decided that he wants to now rehabilitate himself. And so he was part of this, basically, sort of fundraising event, supposedly, which she was invited to, I think, because she thought it was going to be good for Scunthorpe. So,
and she said to his social media followers, Liz Truss loves you. He has got blindingly white turkey teeth. It is very funny.
He has. And this all took place in Scunthorpe United Stadium, which is a non-league club. She was guest of honour and had not been paid to appear, according to her people. So, I mean, it's one of those stories that, I mean, they make the allegation that, well, she should be probably a bit more careful about who she associates with, really. And probably her people should have been a bit more sort of thoughtful about trying to figure out what this guy was doing.
That's true, but I would say the same about our Prime Minister and who he's been associating with, and how do we know?
Well, that's true, absolutely. Let's talk about Lindsay Hoyle, High Life Hall, as he's now called.
No, I'm just going to get angry.
Of the
Can we
Daily
get
Mail.
rid of today? Could we get rid of Keir Starmer? If by the end of the year Starmer, Hermer, and Lindsay Hoyle are gone, that would be a good year.
I don't know how easy it is to get rid of the Speaker.
They are up to their necks in it.
Well, we've been covering this now for several weeks.
I know you have, but I want you to make a campaign of Hoyle, Hermer.
But what I'm saying is this is an even further allegation, which wasn't known about a while ago. We know that he went to, all sorts of places like Nevis for his supposedly spreading of democracy tour, right? But he also went to St Martin, Montserrat, Anguilla and Antigua, all beautiful islands in the Caribbean, part of a week-long jaunt, which included a two-night official visit to Montserrat to meet his counterpart. I mean, give me a break. His counterpart on the island. It also included a four-night stay in Anguilla to attend a conference of speakers of the UK House of Commons and Overseas Territories. I mean, Conference of Speakers of the UK House of Commons and Overseas Territories sounds like a massive jolly to me, doesn't it?
These are it's an absolute junket, and he has basically been island hopping around these gorgeous, gorgeous Caribbean islands, hasn't he? Private flights. I think they were private flights.
They were private planes, because that's, in many ways, the only way you can get around down there.
Yeah, exactly.
There's not that many commercial flights.
No, of course, exactly.
I mean, you can go by boat. I'm not saying he had no choice. I'm saying that, £5,500 worth of taxpayers' money should not be being spent on this kind of stuff.
Oh, and in total, Sir Lindsay spent more than £100,000 of taxpayers' cash sponsoring this conference.
Yeah.
What's the benefit to us on this conference? Has there been any benefit to us of this conference? Why were these not declared?
His office has always said, it's part of his job to spread the sort of gospel, if you like, about parliamentary democracy.
I thought he was the Speaker of the House of Commons, i.e. in Pimlico, in Westminster.
Yes,
What's he doing in the Caribbean?
I know, absolutely right. The Speaker's office said one reason details of the private planes were not listed in his official travel expenses log was because some of the costs were allocated to the Clerk of the House.
So you move it around,
while some were included in the overall budget for sponsoring the conference. So
totally irrelevant.
Yeah, moving money around.
Yeah, we've all got. Yeah, put it there. Right. Don't put that against travel. Put that against expenses.
Yes.
Don't put that against hotels. Put that against research.
He also handed the National Assembly of Anguilla a £50,000 organising grant to prepare for the conference. So he goes, I'll come over to see you. I'll give you some money to organise a conference.
How much? £50,000.
Yeah. It comes amid growing questions about the scale of Sir Lindsay's travel expenses, which have surged past £300,000 since he became Speaker in 2019. And he's taken his wife on several trips, along with up to 4 members of staff.
Oh,
this does not work.
And then he had to fly home via Antigua because there were no direct flights.
Oh, yes.
So he had to spend a few days there as well.
Yeah, he had to charter a private plane for the Montserrat official visit because there were no direct flights.
I think that £50,000 organising grant is absolutely shocking.
It is.
Unless we can see the direct or any benefit to the UK taxpayer.
No, I don't see any benefit whatsoever.
This kind of story makes me really sad because nothing is being done about this. And we know this about Lindsay Hoyle. We know that no answers have been given. It's all smoke and mirrors.
And he's very indignant. And whenever I get any MPs on here to try and ask them to criticise Lindsay Hoyle, they won't do it because the system is such that, I mean, even Richard Tice wouldn't do it because the system is such that if you do criticise the Speaker, you'll never get called to ask another question. You'll be shunned in the Commons. I mean, it's not a democracy in there at all.
Really? Even Reform won't criticise him?
No. I mean, you know, they were, shall we say, reluctant.
Yeah.
You know, the last time I asked him about it, because he rules with an iron fist.
That is really, really
the power
shocking.
of the Speaker is absolutely shocking, because people should be asking questions in Parliament. I mean, I would, if it was me, if I was Kemi Badenoch, I would ask the Prime Minister's questions the next time it's up. You know, could Lindsay Hoyle please explain to the office of the Prime Minister why he keeps jetting off with his wife on various jaunts, which he says are things that he has to do for work.
And I think, you know, other ministers and other senior ministers and the Prime Minister and stuff, they have tightened up on that. They have become more aware. I mean, Glasses Gate and all of that was still unexplained, but I think they are now more aware that you can't just do this stuff. You can't just accept freebies. Other ministers seem to be more conscious of what you can accept. But Lindsay Hoyle seems to be getting away with it. With absolutely with complete and utter impunity.
It is nonsensical, isn't it? Sean in Gloucester says this, Mike, I'm absolutely incandescent with rage. The Tories were useless and had no intention of sorting illegal immigration, but Keith Starling and his cronies have supercharged the problem. It's getting to the point where any normal, decent people in this country should emigrate and leave these lunatics to it. Well, an awful lot of people are emigrating.
A lot of people are leaving this country.
Yeah.
And they don't want to, and they love this country.
I know, absolutely ridiculous. Morning, Mike and Emma. Excellent show as always. The shot of Starmer looking through the binoculars. Is he trying to see how many more dinghies are coming across? Yeah, well, you don't really need binoculars for that. You just have to turn up down on the beach at Dover and you can see it. Small boats from France is enough. The government should stop paying money to France, stop the fishing rights in UK waters. Doing this would cause French actions on the boats with a refusal to allow a restart until the French stop the boats. And that's Ash of Lancs, who is a Gulf veteran. Yeah, I mean, every single person listening to this show and watching it has got a better idea of how to stop the boats than Keir Starmer.
Do you remember the outrage about a year ago when Reform said, well, we'll push the boats back, we will turn the boats back. That's what we do. That's what our maritime forces can do, turn them around and send them back.
That'll be Starmer's policy soon.
Well, then he'll come to it.
Yeah. Because he'll have to copy
like
Reform.
when he started sort of saying, oh, it's a bit of an invasion, isn't it? We don't really want, you know, our country completely flooded by illegal immigrants.
We're going to be tough on immigration. It needs to be reduced drastically.
It didn't really sound very authentic, did it?
Well, nothing's happened.
When he was saying it. Well, of course nothing's happened.
Since he said
that.
But
he had to do it, because you remember, after Reform quake, he was absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
Or they were terrified.
Yeah.
So they wheeled him out, made him say this stuff. And then he disappeared again.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, we'll be looking out for his first lie of the day, because, I mean, that will probably come from one tweet or other that he puts out. We'll keep an eye on that.
I'm in a dockyard. Oh, no, I'm in a... I don't know where I am.
I don't know where I am.
Free the sausages!
I've been kidnapped and taken to a submarine base. I'm not quite sure why.
Beep, beep.
Yeah. Beep, beep.
Yeah, beep.
Let's get a voice note from Gav.
Morning, Mike. It's Gav from Dorset. Great show. Listen every morning. Yeah, these little boats that keep landing. Starmer's trying to set up a deal where they can ship them across to Albania or Lithuania, Romania, Latvia, wherever. So imagine this, 20, 30, 40, 50,000, however many immigrants go to these countries, and then come to the end of his term, Starmer takes us back into Europe by the back door, and then all these immigrants can walk in legally. I'm wondering if that's his long game.
Well, you wouldn't know. I don't think he's got a long game. I mean, he talks about things that are going to happen in the next Parliament. He's not going to be running it. So, I mean, that's how ludicrously out of touch he is. But it's coming up to 6:47. We've nearly finished the first hour already. I don't know what's going on. We're going to ask you about junior doctors coming up next. Also, there's going to be a tax on water, apparently. That's the next thing that they've decided Rachel Reeves might be able to raise some money on. This is Talk.
It's always very tempting to say the money should be spent somewhere else, but the truth is we don't have our liberty and our freedom. In other words, if we've literally been invaded and taken over, none of those other things matter. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely, we need to spend more money now on defence. When we were first, if you want to go back 14 years in power, China it was a golden era. Russia, we were in the G8, so in the group of the most developed nations. Obviously, all of that's changed, and the defence budget has to change alongside that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:51. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Graham in Wrexham says Starmer has no backbone. He's never sacked anyone. Louise Haigh, Rachel Reeves, Jonathan Reynolds, Ed Miliband, Sue Gray. The list goes on. Is he running the country or just a spokesman for it? He is weak and needs to go very, very quickly. Well, it's not getting any better, is it? That is the problem. Lots of other good stories to talk about, though. Emma Wolf is here with us. Let's start with the junior doctors, who keep trying to now rename themselves resident doctors. I'm going to keep calling them junior doctors.
Or shirkers?
Because I know it
I mean, they're not
them.
resident, they're not barely at work.
They're really not. Apparently, a new study has shown actually they're better off now than they were a decade ago. This is an analysis by the Nuffield Trust, I believe it is, who basically said they're 8% better off than they were 10 years ago.
So all of this nonsense they've been peddling us, the BMA certainly, we just want pay restoration to 2008 levels, is complete nonsense.
Yes.
They are now demanding nearly 30%. They got 22%. Wes Streeting handed them 22% within weeks of coming in. Oh, guess what? They're now back, and they want that to be up to 30%. And I'm not attacking individual doctors and nurses, because lots of them are amazing and they do an amazing job.
Lots of them are not in the BMA either.
Lots of them are not in the BMA. But look, if the BMA are balloting you, they're balloting them now, aren't they? 55,000 members.
Yeah.
And they say, would you like more money? Of course they're going to say yes.
Yeah.
But they have to live in the real world.
But
This is absolutely outrageous.
Wes Streeting came out over the weekend and just said, you know, it's not anything that's going to get. He's not going to get in the room with them. He's not going to talk to them. It's not a negotiation. It's over.
Yeah, he says he's not negotiating. Fine, he says that. But now they're saying, we're going to hold you to ransom.
Right.
We are going to bring, and they're going to work with consultants.
Yeah.
They're going to bring the NHS to a standstill. And you know what? They can.
They won't have to go far to do that, though, will they? It's already at a standstill pretty much most of the time.
It's true. But it is a real problem, because when you start getting appointments cancelled, it's bad enough when operations are cancelled. When appointments are cancelled and important cancer diagnoses are not made, and then you get another appointment for 6 months' time, people die.
Yeah.
People will lose their
Of
lives
course.
if the BMA continue down this path.
It is absolutely incredible.
Very, very dangerous. They're talking about people's lives here.
Yeah, 55,000 members are going to be balloted for further strikes coming up in the next few weeks. It really is quite disgusting.
And there's no pretense now. This is about money. Do you remember when it was, oh, no, it's not about money, it's about safety. It's about
safeguarding.
Working conditions.
Yeah.
They're not safe working conditions.
Yeah.
Well, this is very, very clear now. It's absolutely craven.
And it's also
about money.
And it also shows that Labour's policy, which was to settle the strike and make sure that it went away.
Settle the strike, give them that much money.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to come back.
Come back for more. And the same is going to happen with the train drivers, the
And
same is going to happen
teachers.
with teachers
Exactly.
and nurses and everybody else who's ever been on strike is going to come back to get more money. Meanwhile, the government is trying to find new ways to tax us. There might be a tax coming soon on water. Because apparently some of the... and this is, again, it's all linked to smart meters and all these things that people don't like the idea of. Basically, if you use too much water, you might be charged an extra amount of tax, not only by the water company, but also by the
higher tariff.
A higher
it's
tariff.
Not just the quantity, it's the higher tariff.
A higher tariff, but also a tax by the government as well.
So let's hit the poorest as well. I mean, yeah, there are people who are refilling their swimming pools and all of that, but basically they're calling it a sort of bath time tax.
Yeah.
People with large families,
Yeah.
people living in, I don't know, small flats with large families who need to give their kids a bath at the end of the day after a dirty school day.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just so kind of...
But this is where the insidiousness of these smart meters comes in, because, you know, if you've got a smart meter, that smart meter will report directly into a central bank telling them how much water you're using, and they could potentially cut it off.
Exactly, and I think this also exposes the complete sort of disintegration of the water industry, which we've seen for many, many years.
Yeah.
The fat cat bosses raking in millions in bonuses for absolute failure. But it also, do you remember last week we were talking about, you know, we're running out of water in this country. You know, air conditioning in Spain being rationed and all of that kind of thing. Why are we running out of water? Guess what? When you have thousands and thousands of people coming to this country, you don't have the infrastructure set up for water, for refuse collection, for the absolute basics, for power, then things get really tricky. And we probably will be rationed. Our water will be rationed soon. And then how are you going to wash...
Here's another thing that the Labour Party put out at the weekend. They said that, you know, business confidence in this country is now growing again, right? Which was complete and utter balderdash, right? Here's a story in The Sun. Pubs and restaurants are under threat after Labour's tax hikes, with a third of them running at a loss. The number of boozers at risk is up to 11% since March. Landlords say they can only survive by putting prices up. You know, business confidence? I don't think so.
This is a real story. One in three hospitality businesses are in trouble, are not making a profit, are really, really struggling. And when you talk to people in pubs, in cafes, in restaurants, doing a decent job, providing food and providing a bit of a social kind of, you know, social life to people in this country, what a struggle. Trying to just heat their premises.
I know.
Trying to just, you know, make
and they haven't got as many people working behind the bar, because they can't afford them, because they had to let them go because of national insurance.
Of course.
The whole thing is absolutely falling apart. We should mention, by the way, a lot of papers have done this, and we haven't mentioned it yet, this incredible operation by Ukraine, hitting all these Russian bombers.
It'll be in the history book, says Vladimir Zelensky.
Swarms of drones flew out from parked trucks, which were driven inside Russia. Ukraine hits 40 different nuclear bombers. Very, very far. I think it's a couple of thousand miles away from the Ukrainian border. I mean, it's quite a remarkable mission, this, that they seem to have carried out. Very secretive, and there's something to do with spider operation, they're calling it. Kremlin moved strategic bombers to a place called Olenia, Murmansk, to protect them from drone attacks. But the Ukrainians got them anyway.
40, I think 40 drones attacked these Russian bomber planes overnight. Or was it overnight? It was sort of drone swarm.
Yeah, it was over the weekend.
Absolutely astonishing. Apparently it was months. It took a lot of secretive, very, very, very months in the planning. And Zelensky's, claiming, he says this is one for the history books. So
absolutely
they're obviously...
One final story on Gary Lineker, who's now departed these shores. He's no longer a presenter on Match of the Day. BBC Chiefs delivered a final snub to Gary Lineker in The Sun today when they axed his last interview without warning. He was due to interview Mo Salah, who famously is an Egyptian
Liverpool legend.
But they were worried that he might ask him a question about Gaza, so he didn't let him do it. It shows you how far Gary Lineker's fallen, doesn't it?
Exactly, and it was very gratifying to see him sort of, you know, going out not with a bang but with a whimper. It wasn't really the swan song that he wanted. No, it wasn't really the grand finale.
It was all a bit emotional, wasn't it? Did you see it? You know, he was like, "Oh, I want to thank everybody." It was like, you know, you haven't won an Oscar, mate.
Just
you know,
close the door on your way out, mate.
Close the door on your way out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed. Maybe you should go and join the Gaza flotilla.
Well, I was going to say, you know, Greta Thunberg's got room on that ship.
Yeah. I'm not sure. According to Alan Middlesbury, he says, looking at Greta Thunberg's boat, it doesn't look as if it's powered by wind or solar. That boat will need lots of luck getting past Israel's border police around Gaza, unless Greta thinks the Israelis policing their borders on the Med have been trained by the UK Border Force.
Absolutely.
I suspect they are probably a little bit tougher than UK Border Force.
And you know, Mike, I think everybody defending those boats and saying, oh, but you know, those images of the boats coming over at the weekend, they were photoshopped. They were just, they would take... Every single one of them can take in a boatload of arrivals.
Yes.
I think that would be the way to do it, because Gary Lineker, you know, the hypocrisy of that man. Oh, but I took a Ukrainian refugee 20 years ago, or whatever it is that they say.
Right.
People are struggling for a reason. They're struggling. It's not, you know, individual hatred or racism or anything.
You know, sort of millionaires on television go talking about how, well, I love the fact that we've got a multicultural city. And
they're not in touch with it at all.
And it's really, really cool.
They live in leafy Richmond.
Yeah, they live in Millionaires Row, for heaven's sake. One final one. So Keir Starmer's been urged to cut factory energy costs amid warnings that huge bills are pushing Britain towards deindustrialisation. Another one for your ridiculous claim that business confidence is up. It ain't. It's down, alongside everything else that's going on in the country at the moment. Emma Wolf, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks,
Good to
Mike.
see you.
No.
We've got loads more coming up in the next hour, of course. We're going to be talking to Will Kingston. We're going to be finding out what's going on with losing control of the border. Stephen Wolf's going to be joining us as well. And also, we might have a Minister of the Crown coming on to talk about the Strategic Defence Review. Oh, no, they cancelled. This is Talk. Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's the one show where you do not have to be worried about judgmental people because we'll do all the judging for you. Let's just have a look at how Humsley Useless is now spending his time.
There goes your career, mate.
Over there a bit is over towards where all the migrants come in. He's jumping there. There he goes. He goes over the bar.
Hello,
and
lady.
unfortunately, it catches on its Johnson.
If he's plank of the week, he's got a sizable plank.
Well, apparently,
that's a whole different show.
Plank of the Week, Fridays at 7 on Talk.
Hi.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to very nearly 3 minutes past 7. It is, of course, Monday, the 2nd of June. A brand new month, a brand new week, a brand new day. The sun is shining, but it's not going to be shining for very long, I'm afraid, because as of tomorrow, there's going to be an awful lot of rain hitting our shores. And, of course, we would welcome that, would we not? Now that they're trying to put water prices up, maybe they could collect some of it and actually give it to us for free instead of selling it to us, even though it falls free from the sky. Coming up a little bit later on in this hour, I'll be telling you the tale of how I watched a parking warden put a ticket on a disabled car, which had a disabled sticker clearly shown. And we'll have to be asking you why it is possible for somebody who's got a disabled car sticker to get a parking ticket. Surely that shouldn't be happening. We'll find out what that's all about. Keir Starmer, of course, is unveiling the Strategic Defence Review today, in which he says that he's going to put more pride back into our home defences. He says safe at home, is it? Secure at home? Strong abroad? I don't think so, because we're not secure at home, are we? Nearly 1,200 people came here on Saturday illegally on 18 boats. I'm not even going to call them small boats anymore. But already the newspapers have got an idea of this Strategic Defence Review. Starmer's Defence Review strategy is in disarray, according to the Daily Telegraph. Defence Secretary backtracked on pledge to boost military spending by 3%, because, of course, it's meant to be 3% of GDP. Donald Trump said that in the European model, not enough money was being spent on defence, so you need to spend more. However, the problem for Keir Starmer is that none of this is going to happen until, as he puts it, the next Parliament. What everybody can see, unless they are completely and utterly blinded by Labour apparatchiks, that, quite frankly, the next Parliament is hardly likely to be run by this Labour government, because they're so useless, they're never going to win another election, ever, in the history of time. 0344 499 1000. We'll talk about John Healey. We'll talk about Keir Starmer smashing the gangs. We'll talk as well about the EU fishing deal, because a number of migrants coming over now has caused such alarm that Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, is saying to the government, what you must do now, for heaven's sake, is to stop the deal on EU fish and the fisheries situation until the migrant problem is solved. And let's have a voice note from Belinda.
Morning, Mike. Belinda here. Hope you're well. Yeah, just calling up about the, the boatloads of visitors, shall we say, on Saturday and Sunday. I do not understand for the life of me, and I've been saying this for months and months and months. Why is he not calling a Cobra meeting? This is a national emergency now, and if people can't see now from the weekend how awful and how bad it is, they need to wake up, and he needs to do something. And by he, I mean Slippery Starmer. He needs to wake up. Great show, Mike.
Belinda, thank you very much indeed. He does need to wake up. He needs to stop thinking that we're safe at home and secure at home when we clearly are not. This is Morning Glory. Let us get it on. We've got those beeps from the submarine. Do you remember when he went on and I see no ships, the old binoculars going like that? I mean, it is mad, isn't it? Let's talk, though, now to Will Kingston, political commentator, host of the Fire at Will podcast. Will, very good morning to you.
G'day, Mike. How you going?
Yeah, good to see you, man. He's lost control again of the channel. He's lost control, it seems, of the briefings on the Strategic Defence Review. Is there anything that Keir Starmer's actually got control of?
It doesn't appear to be. Mike, you as a broadcaster must have this feeling that I have from time to time when you read the morning papers and you see a story and you go, what can I possibly say about this story that I haven't said before?
Yeah.
Because it keeps happening again and again and again, and yet nothing ever changes. And that's the illegal boat story.
Yeah.
So this is what I'll say today, and it actually goes to the question that Belinda put in her voice note, and that is that this is a choice from this government. This is not an intractable problem. We know that this can be solved. The Australians solved it.
Yeah.
We've heard separately people like Dominic Cummings who have looked into this issue very closely, put out very clear plans for how you go about doing this. So it goes to the question, well, why is he making this choice? And the answer is that in order to actually stop this problem, he has to go against the one thing, and probably the only thing that he believes in, which is international human rights law.
Yeah.
Because step number one is getting out of the ECHR, but he just can't bring himself to do it. What we're watching is the world's worst Greek tragedy, because we've got the most boring main character for a Greek tragedy who can see that this could be fatal for his prime ministership. And I actually think he can see that now. But he just can't bring himself to do anything because it would require him to go against the one thing that he truly believes in. So this is going to keep happening, and we're going to continue being the sufferers in the audience of a really, really boring, rubbish Greek tragedy.
The whipping
as
balls
Starmer
of it,
implodes.
yeah. Well, there's a reason why he doesn't believe in it, and that's because he hangs around with his mate Lord Hermer, who is now the Attorney General, one of his best friends from his days as a human rights lawyer, because Lord Hermer clearly set out his stall, didn't he, last week, when he said anyone who wants to get rid of the ECHR is pretty much like a Nazi. You know, he was forced to apologise, but he didn't really apologise. He said, well, you know, I may have been using clumsy words. Well, they weren't clumsy words, because it was a scripted speech that he made in front of an audience of people that he knew he was talking to. So it was hardly something that slipped out. He constructed the sentence, he read the sentence out, and he knew precisely what he was saying, and he absolutely believes that. He thinks that anyone who wants to ditch anything to do with the ECHR and anything to do with human rights in Europe in particular is a bad guy.
Well, it's a scripted speech from someone whose job is literally to be precise with words.
Yeah.
So let's not take that excuse.
Yeah.
The thing is, the assumption from these Laborites is that if you dump the ECHR, suddenly human rights go out the window in this country.
Right.
This country basically invented human rights. They have done more than any other to promote human rights around the world, and I include the United States in that.
Yeah.
And yet, they seem to believe, well, if we don't have Europe telling us what is and isn't virtuous behaviour, somehow everything will fall apart. It would just mean that we would have the autonomy to decide what our version of how you actually go about pursuing human rights is. And I can make a very good argument that it is not humane to allow children, and admittedly there aren't many because they're mainly fighting age men, but still children and men to get into dangerous dinghies and drown in the English Channel. That isn't an example of defending human rights. It's just not.
Right. And even if that wasn't to be the reason you stopped the boats from coming, because I don't believe that leaving the ECHR would necessarily stop the people from coming here, what you need to get rid of the ECHR for is so that you can deport the people who shouldn't be here. People who have come here illegally, first of all, and then secondly, having come here illegally, committed crimes in this country, gone to prison in this country, and who we still can't deport because of the ECHR ridiculous rules and Article 8 on the right to a family life. All of that, of course, could be finished and done away with without us having to leave the ECHR. We could simply just ignore it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. But it is a necessary precondition to everything else that follows. But the one thing which we do need to be very wary of is that it has been, in the way that the ECHR has been interpreted by our judiciary, has made it very clear that they are so ideologically captured that they will find other statutes and conventions and, you know, precedents to try and continue this agenda. I've been absolutely stunned with all of the silly stories that have come out in how senior judges have tried to keep people who should not be in the country. We saw that Ghanaian woman only over the weekend who we can't deport apparently because she's been in the country too long.
Right.
So she's been breaking the law for too long a period of time, which is what you are doing when you're an illegal migrant. So we therefore need to keep letting her.
And that's why they're going to keep coming, because as long as they know, and as long as they see the footage of all of these people being not only helped to leave France, but also then helped into boats that bring them to England, you know, which are not the small boats, by the way. These are the ones that pick them up in the middle of the English Channel from border force and from the RNLI. Of course, they're going to keep coming, and they also know when they get here, they're going to get a free house or they're going to get at least a free hotel room, and they can just do whatever they want. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, well, the one thing to your point that you can do immediately, and again, it goes to incentives. This is basic human psychology. Is get them out of hotels and put them into detention centres. I spoke to Tony Abbott on this, the former Prime Minister of Australia, who was responsible for the Stop the Boats policy. And he said, and this may sound harsh, but he said cruelty should be part of, or harshness, I think he said, should be part of the policy, because it is the harshness that acts as the disincentive that stops people from actually making this trip in the first place.
Right.
So whilst it may appear harsh to put people in detention centres, in the long term, it saves lives.
Yeah, of course it does. And Giorgia Meloni's also managed to have some success in stopping people and boats coming across from North Africa into, you know, Lampedusa in off the coast of Italy and into Italy's mainland, because she's just taken a harder line and she's made it much more difficult for people to do it. And once you make something difficult for people, they stop doing it.
Yeah, that's right. Basic incentives.
Yeah.
It's just I despair at this conversation, Mike. I'm sure we'll be talking about it next week and the week after.
Oh, I'm sure.
And the week after.
Because,
nothing changes.
you know, every single time that Keir Starmer puts his face in front of a microphone, he tells us that we're secure at home. I mean, we've got, yesterday, I think we might as well play it. This is their tweet that they put out yesterday on defence. This is ahead of the national, the defence review that's coming out later on this morning.
Yeah, I saw this.
First goal is always the safety and security of the United Kingdom. And that's why we're boosting defence spending, the largest sustained increase since the Cold War. An increase of £13.4 billion year on year. Not just meeting our commitment to spend 2.5% of our GDP on defence, but bringing it forward to 2027. And alongside that, a new ambition for defence spending to rise to 3% of GDP in the next Parliament. We'll publish a strategic defence review to determine how we can best meet the threats of today and return Britain to war-fighting readiness, secure at home, strong abroad.
years. So they've got a new ambition, apparently, which is to get to 3% of GDP by the next Parliament. Now, I think you and I could probably make quite a lot of money on a safe bet that they won't be running the next Parliament. In addition to which, the only reason that GDP is relevant here is that if GDP is rising because of growth in the economy, then yes, you put more money into the system. But actually, if GDP isn't rising because the economy is flatlining, which it is, then it doesn't matter what you put in as a percentage of GDP, because the GDP percentage is so low, and somebody's worked out for me very, very handily, thank you, that would, if they build 12 submarines, nuclear submarines, they'll eat up half of the money.
Yeah. I didn't know that. That's unbelievable. Well, look, even if you use GDP, the only way GDP is going to rise is if they keep their ridiculous immigration policies in place. GDP per capita has certainly been declining and will continue to decline. Look, the two things I would say on this, Mike. Number one, I believe the reason why they've turned this from being a pledge into an ambition is because they've got pushback from Treasury. And it goes to show that this country is run by unelected bureaucrats in dark offices in the Treasury and other administrative quangos that sit behind the government. And it is incredibly concerning. And it's also my concern if a reform government eventually gets in, because they will run into this brick wall, and it's something that you need to try and attack. But the other thing that I would say is that we've been playing catch up for 30 years on defence, and I will give the Labor government some sympathy here in that nothing's been done for 30 years. We had this mentality at the end of the Cold War that basically said, you know, this is the end of history, everyone's going to play nice from this point on. And so as a result of that, we have done next to nothing. And so have so many other global economies, by the way, as well. So now, when nuclear submarines take years and years to build, I'd be surprised if these go into the water before 2040. You know, it feels like too little too late to me, even if we do get to that 3% pledge or ambition.
I think so. I mean, let's have a look at what John Healey has to say about this so-called ambition.
No doubt that the country will spend 3% of the share of our national income on defence by 2034. But that's nearly 10 years away. And I just wonder, do you have a specific guarantee of that from the Chancellor, from the Treasury? Because our viewers know, and they've heard it before, if the Treasury is not saying yes officially, if it's not in the spreadsheets, it ain't guaranteed to happen at all.
Well, I look at the way the world's changing. I look at the way the Chancellor is fixing the economic foundations of the country. I see increasing growth. I see the Office of Budget Responsibility rising its forecasts for growth in this country. You know, I have no doubt that we'll hit that ambition of meeting 3%
but the question is
during the next Parliament.
He says he sees growth. I don't know where he's looking, because I don't see it. He also says that Rachel Reeves is fixing the foundations of the economy. By doing what? Burying them under 65 feet of concrete.
They lie and lie and lie. Andrew Neil came out with a great article last week where he said in his entire career in journalism, this is the first government he's seen that just continuously and blatantly lies. He's seen other governments that try and obfuscate the truth or that are ambivalent towards the truth.
Yeah.
But that's just a lie. There is not growth in any meaningful sense, and there isn't forecast for growth in any meaningful sense. So that's incredibly just sad and depressing to hear.
Well, it really is. And as you say, the sort of self-delusion is quite worrying, quite disturbing. That they keep saying things as though if they say them often enough, they'll come true, or that we'll at least believe them. And I think people have had enough. You know, Harry Cole's got a great piece in The Sun today in his column where he's been talking to Nigel Farage over the weekend. And Farage gets it. Farage understands that all of these attacks that are being made by both the Tories and the Labour government on reform are not getting through to anybody who votes for reform because they don't trust them. The trust is gone.
They don't trust them. But also, things are so bad now, Mike, that people are willing to take a punt on reform. If, you know, you have Labor officials saying that, well, reform haven't fully costed their policies, which is potentially true, people go, I don't care. Things are so bad, we're willing to take a punt. But the other thing that I would say on this more broadly is that when you hear about things like 3% of GDP on defence spending and then the Treasury pushing back saying we won't have the money for it, one has to ask, why won't we have the money for it? And the answer is because you're putting money elsewhere. Every single choice that we make, like Chagos Islands, giving money away there, like migrant hotels, like net zero, is putting money in places where they could be put towards defence. And you need to remember, it is a decision, like it is a prioritisation exercise, how you choose to spend your money, which should make you angry when you hear about every single spending decision, which is not directly helping the British people.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Will Kingston there, political commentator and host of the Fire at Will podcast. Let's get a voice note from Paul.
Morning, Mike. It's Paul in Bournemouth. Just a thought on the small boat crossings. Whatever happened to the bloke that was put in charge of the new border force, who presumably is on a salary at least as much as the Prime Minister gets? What's he doing? When he gets in at 9 o'clock this morning, what's he actually going to do? Anyway, great show. Thanks.
Yeah, the new border security commander. I mean, what is he actually doing? What's his job? I mean, as he watches the sort of the news at the weekend, you know, he comes home from his, I don't know, afternoon in the pub on a Saturday. Martin Hewitt is his name. Does he sit there and go, oh, crikey, look at that. How many? 1,194. What, on 18 boats? Oh, Christ. You know, this job's harder than I thought. What's he doing? What is he doing? It's a great question, Paul. Thank you. Matt in Stourport says this. First day back at work today after a holiday in Florida. It was so nice. The streets were clean. The estate had no signs of miscreants on e-bikes and scooters. There were police everywhere. Now I'm back with 2 separate cancelled NHS appointments. Already looking into transferring my skill set to work in the States. If I get any opportunity, me and my family will be gone. Love the show. It's the only good thing to come back to. Well, listen, Matt, welcome back. I have to say, I feel your pain. I had a similar kind of experience when I came back from Dubai last week because, you know, it was so clean there and so decent and such an efficient place that, you know, to come back to Britain, which is partially broken, if not completely broken, it was a bit of a downer, to be honest. But you just have to try and get on with it. And don't forget, no matter where you are, if you're in Dubai or if you're in Florida, you're in any part of the world, you can still listen to this show, and you can also get the Morning Glory podcast, which comes out right after it. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Talk.
I think he was just not prepared to risk what might come on the budget day, hence why it happened the day before. It wasn't anything to do, he wasn't depressed. I mean, he did have struggles looking after my mum and he was struggling with that, but he wasn't depressed. We lived next door to each other and, we spent hours together each day. It really was the financial side of things that just, I'm sure it was just a decision he took. He thought, I'm not worked all my life for the government to take it off me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 23 minutes past 7. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10. It is Monday, the 2nd of June. Welcome to a brand new month. Welcome to a brand new week. Welcome to a brand new show. Of course, we are here to bring you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Morning, Mike, says Sean in Gloucester. The new Border Circle Commander is obviously very busy having meetings with Jürgen at GB Energy. I think that should be Border Security Commander. Andy from Notts says most human rights legislation has the right to life as number one. Water is essential to life. Restricting it or making it too expensive would be a violation. Maybe we, the people, can take them, the human rights lawyers in Parliament, using their own legislation. What a good idea. You can say that, yeah, you absolutely have a right to water. How about this one from Mike? He said 12 new submarines. Your Sir Keith clip with the pinging in the background will soon be on a 24-hour loop, says Mike in Herne Bay. There it is. 3% of GDP by the next Parliament. And you can see Vladimir Putin quaking in his boots, can't you? Absolutely. I mean, they're talking about 2030 before they get these submarines. I thought we were supposed to be on a war footing. We'll see you in 6 years, or maybe longer. They'd probably be late, won't they? And over budget. You would expect that. We're supposed to be at war. Instead of defending us now, Healey is making vague plans for 10 years hence, says Max. Imagine if Churchill had done that in 1939. He says it's not the Navy's job to defend our coastline. Well, why not? It's true. Healey in the Defence Review, says Bill in Cheshire, it's just another diversion for the media to deflect them from immigration and the state of the economy, doctors' demands, etc. What better than dig out your defence of the realm credentials? They don't learn. They still think we're stupid. Yeah, I mean, they really do think that, don't they? They really think that we are just going to swallow every single thing that they tell us. We're building some more submarines to keep the security of the nation safe. Yeah, well, unfortunately, 1,194 men pretty much came into the country illegally on Saturday. We're waiting to find out how many of them came in on Sunday because we don't yet know. But let's talk to Stephen Wolfe, Director for the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity. Stephen, very good morning to you.
Is that not okay?
Hello, I can hear you. Are you there?
Yes, hi Mike, how are you?
Yeah, very well indeed. How are you doing? Unbelievable this weekend. I said, I think about 2 months ago, it won't be long before 1,000 plus people come in one day alone. And I know it's not the highest of all time. I think it's the 5th highest number of arrivals of all time. It's certainly the highest number this year. But it's happened. I thought it would happen before the end of July. It's now happened before the end of May. Absolutely staggering number, isn't it?
Oh, Mike, this is truly staggering numbers, as you quite rightly said. And we've had this discussion about it. We were chatting, you said that it'd be over 1,000, 1,100 come. And as we put out now, that means the total this year is 14,557. Yeah. And more astonishingly, it's up 43% on this time last year. So that's indicating that we're going to get around 55,000 channel migrants. That would be the biggest number that we've had since they started coming across in 2018. Yeah. Truly abysmal.
Yeah, exactly right. And of course, famously, this time we managed to see what the French were doing to stop them, which was basically the square root sweet FA, standing there taking pictures of them leaving, as if they were sort of putting together some kind of picture postcard album for them to say, cheerio, I hope you enjoyed your time in France, you know, au revoir, arrivederci, whatever, we won't see you again.
I'm surprised they didn't give them a baguette and a couple of coffees and full packs of Gitan as well.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, because the way they're doing now, are they taking photographs there, just for a memory box to say that they can laugh at the British? Because that's really what they are doing. Along with themselves, Macron and the people smugglers are laughing at the people of Britain. And Mike, one of the things that I did over the weekend, when these numbers came out, we ran them through our model that we have, a static model for modeling, and I can reveal to you now that the people smugglers have made £1 billion since 2018. Wow. Over £1 billion is their revenue from this disgusting trade.
That is staggering, and it's a staggering amount of money. And yet, I mean, somebody asked the question, and it's a fair question. Martin Hewitt, the guy who was appointed as the Border Security Commander, I mean, what is he actually doing? Because it doesn't appear to be doing much.
Well, we don't know. I mean, that's half the problem. We've not really had any indication from the government or any real speeches from them, or really a parliamentary kind of investigation into the work that he's doing. Normally, they come before the Home Affairs Select Committees you've seen there and gives us a full, clear indication of what they've managed to achieve. So far from what we heard was very little about anything at all. They're supposedly doing deals across Europe to try and smash the gangs. We're not seeing evidence of it. All they do is the gangs are making a buck and they're laughing at us.
Well, it looks that way, doesn't it? I mean, he's wearing a very nice epaulette shirt there, so it makes him look like he's in charge of some kind of military organisation. But, I mean, there is no military organisation, because all that Border Force seem to do, and they're presumably in uniforms as well, is they pick these people up off boats, put them on their own boats and bring them in. I mean, it's not exactly strong and secure at home, is it?
No. It's warm and welcoming. It's cuddly and fuzzy.
Yeah.
This is really what the whole of the Border Force now should be. We are the cuddly, fuzzy organisation to help people smugglers bring in and make a profit. But what we see is the real issues to this country afterwards. Last week we had the report that £1 billion a week is being spent, a month is being spent on benefits for those who claim asylum and then are granted it. We've had the National Audit Office tell us that the housing of people smugglers, profit people, the individuals, the asylum seekers, has made 15 billion in 10 years. We know that we're losing huge sums of money. It's destroying our environment. It's destroying our culture. But more than anything, it's destroying our trust in government.
Yeah, it totally is. And I mean, as far as whatever the French are now likely to change in terms of their behaviour, we're now being told, they're going to go into the water and that's going to make a big difference. That's what John Healey, the Secretary of State for Defence, said yesterday. Exactly what they're going to do when they walk into the water, because they can't arrest somebody for leaving the country, can they?
Well, they're going to change their name to Jesus all of a sudden. That's it. Become Spanish overnight.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they're not going to do absolutely anything. I mean, this is the most embarrassing part about it. I think if you're French, you're looking at the English and laughing, as in say, they're enjoying it. They're enjoying the moment that they can push the boats into the water and let us pay for it. As for them getting wet, no, they'll never get wet feet over this issue, partly because it's actually politically dangerous for them. If Macron enabled them to keep them, then Marie Le Pen's party, even though she's not in power, they would actually benefit even more at the polls. So they won't do that.
No, of course not. We've actually found a clip of Border Security Commander Martin Hewitt. I think this was when he first got the job. This is what he said he was going to do.
As the new Border Security Commander, my mission is to deliver a step change in all of the work that we are doing to disrupt and dismantle the criminal gangs that are not only trying to breach our borders but are also risking people's lives. By creating the command, so my message to those groups is that we will be attacking your business in every way that we can across all the routes into the UK.
So how do you think that's going, Stephen?
I think most people here are just laughing at the statements on there. Not only did it sound bland, and boring, but it's also not true. That's not what's happening at all. We're clearly seeing this. How many boats now? Over 4,000 boats, I think, since 2018 have managed to carry these 162,000, I think, that we've had, roughly thereabout. They're not stopping the boats. They're not stopping the gangs. What they are is stopping anybody believing that we can have a government that wants to control our borders. But there are ways of doing it. I mean, I know that some might sound it a bit extreme, but Dominic Cummings was talking the other day that all we need to do is send out the SAS to find the heads of the people smugglers and it'll be over overnight. Now, whether that's actually true. But at least that's another suggestion about how we actually do it. Deterrence, deterrence, deterrence is the only way that will stop these people coming in. Not welcome,
I think
welcome.
You've got to treat it. Have you not got to change the way it's treated as well? It's not any longer, a border problem. It's a terrorism problem. And I think they should treat it as if it's a terrorism problem. And in that way, maybe they'll convince themselves that this is how serious it is.
Well, Keir Starmer did say he was going to change the laws to allow terrorism considerations to be involved in this, particularly when we're dealing with anti-money laundering regulations and capturing the cash and the finances for them. I don't see any big cases happening. Maybe tomorrow we'll be proven wrong and suddenly 1,000 people, smugglers, will be arrested all over Europe in one big case. I doubt it very much. But it should be treated as a terrorism, because it is a form of terrorism. It's economic terrorism on the people of Britain when we're having to spend 20 billion a year on this. It's just too much money.
Yeah, it is. It's ruining the economy, as you say. It's ruining the exchequer. It's ruining everything. And no matter how much money old Rachel Thieves thinks that she can generate by taxing us out of all existence, it's never going to be enough to keep up these kind of payments. It's absolutely mad. Good to talk to you, Stephen Wolfe. Thank you very much indeed, Director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity. Let's have a voice note from Matt.
Mike, Matt in Hove here. Do we really expect Keith Starmer to smash the gangs, as he puts it? They arrested one guy, and since that arrest, more people have come over. He's doing the opposite of smashing the gangs. He's not going to do anything. He's encouraging loads of young men to come over. I think the penny's dropping.
Yeah, they have arrested one person, right? Let's have a look at Keith to see how much crowing he did about it.
It is good news that today a man suspected of being a significant supplier of small boat equipment has been arrested. Criminal gangs have been getting away with this for far too long. I want to thank the UK National Crime Agency, along with their Dutch and Belgian counterparts, for all their hard work and their crucial role in this investigation. It's exactly what we want to see. And it shows that our approach of working with international partners to smash the people smuggling gangs is bearing fruit. In just over 4 months since the election, we've rapidly set up a new border security command, bringing together key agencies to disrupt people smuggling gangs.
Sorry. One person. So they actually had a press conference and said, we've arrested one person. Yes, he's supplying boat parts. Napoleon, his name is. Napoleon Boat Part. No. What's he doing? You know, he had a special press conference to say we've arrested one bloke. Look at that number, 37,762 people have come in. What is that, since Labour have been in, I think, right? And they've arrested one guy. Genius. Absolutely brilliant. I wonder what they'll do if they arrest another one. I've got the second miscreant. We've currently got him held in a cell somewhere in Dover. We're going to give him a house, of course. Rick in the Isle of Wight says, please say happy birthday to my lovely wife Pam, who is 80 today. Listening to you in the mornings gives both of us hope for the future. Well, I'm pleased about that. Happy birthday, Pam. 80 years old. Well done, you. Coming up, we're going to speak to Chris Parry, Rear Admiral Chris Parry, no less. We'll get his view on the Strategic Spending Defence Review, because apparently it's already unravelling. It's in disarray because they're not spending the money they said they would spend. It's as simple as that. This is talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:39. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock when it's time for Julia Hartley-Brewer. Sarah near Plymouth says, Mike, perhaps the growing small boat problem will teach Labour that opposition for opposition's sake has the habit of biting one on the backside. And Zoe in Lancashire says, morning, Mike, it's all right wanting to get a grip on this defence thing, but how the hell is Rachel from Accounts going to afford any of this? Well, it's a good question. Let's put it to Rear Admiral Chris Parry, former NATO commander and former Director General at the Ministry of Defence. Chris, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning, everyone.
Good to see you. It's a big day today. The Spending Defence Review is going to be published. I mean, they've trailed it so heavily that I don't think there's going to be much in it that we don't already know. But one of the things that sticks out to me, anyway, certainly, is this money they're going to spend on building 12 submarines. I'm assuming you'll know a bit about this. I mean, that's going to take quite a while to do, isn't it?
Mike, the small print actually says they're going to increase the size of the attack submarine fleet to 12. They didn't actually say they're going to build 12.
Yeah.
So that could include the current Astutes and a few new ones. So let's wait and see till we see the text. What they have got right, I think, is the strategic context and the real urgency that needs to be put in place to actually deal with threats from Russia and China. I worked with Lord Robertson on the 1998 Defence Review, and he did a good job then. I think they've probably done a good job now. But I think you put your finger on it, and that is it affordable?
Yeah.
Because one of the big problems in 1998 is a very good review was totally hamstrung by the fact that it wasn't resourced properly. And I'm afraid to say that everything we're going to see today is jammed tomorrow. There's very little in it that actually alters Putin's calculation about whether he confronts Western Europe. If you're going to bring in these submarines by the late 2030s, I mean, Putin will be dead by then.
Well, right.
That's the point.
And that's the other thing. I mean, there's an awful lot of talk about this 3% of GDP, but as somebody said to me earlier, that's only a rise in a contribution massively if GDP actually rises. If GDP doesn't rise, it's not so much money. And they keep talking about it being an ambition now, and an aim, rather than an actual thing, an actual promise and a real target. And it's all in the next Parliament, which I don't believe they're going to be running.
Mike, it's a spurious benchmark anyway. It's a political slogan for everybody. You have to say, look, this is what the nation needs in terms of defence capabilities, and you actually pay what it takes.
Yeah.
That's the point. And I'm afraid to say, if you say we're going to increase defence spending to 3%, all the defence companies are going to say, yippee, great, we'll just up the prices of everything. So, there's got to be a lot of accountability. What's positive about what I've heard so far is they have committed to saying, look, the nuclear enterprise has got to get better. We're going to have new warheads, for example, for Trident and the new submarines, the Dreadnought class. We may or may not get up to 12 nuclear submarines in the order of battle. But they've also said, look, we're going to build munitions factories and they're going to produce lots of long-range missiles and drones. That reflects the new reality. Yeah. We're going to hit the cyber domain, and more laughably, they're going to introduce the Home Guard again, Dad's Army, volunteers.
Will you be signing up for that? I mean, I don't mean to be impolite, but I mean, you and I are both in the same kind of area there. I don't know whether that's going to be of much use to Mad Old Beast. It's supposed to protect nuclear facilities, right?
Mike, I think, there's going to be lots of skills required. What I object to with this Home Guard idea, it's not just you and me running around with a rifle. I rather hope it's going to be you actually applying your sort of information warfare skills. That's the point. And other people saying, look, we need to have air defence for the sites as well. They haven't thought it through. No. It's just a very good slogan. If you're going to do it properly, you're going to have a range of skills, not just basically Sergeant Wilson and all the others running around with rifles. It's as simple as that.
Going, oh, I say, all over the place. I mean, what about this business of growth? Because they talk about, John Healey yesterday said he was sort of trying to kill two birds with one stone, it seemed to me, that he was trying to make out that, all of this money is going to go into these munitions companies and it's going to create hundreds and thousands of jobs and it's going to make the economy grow. I mean, in theory, it sounds like it could do, but would it?
Well, it depends on profit taking, really. I mean, one of the biggest issues we have in this country is the arms manufacturers know that they are monopoly suppliers in many cases to monopoly customers.
Yeah.
The Ministry of Defence. And it's been outrageous over decades. You know, even when I was serving, we always used to despair at how much stuff costs.
Right.
My experience is that unless you actually incentivize people to provide value for money, real bangs for your buck, and actually introduce penalties for them not doing it, nothing's going to happen at all. And it just becomes, basically a conspiracy against the public, as Adam Smith would say.
Yeah. So in terms of what immediate changes we see after today's announcements, doesn't sound like there's much, really.
Mike, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's rather like being in 1937 and saying, look, at some stage, 1948, 1950, we'll do something about confronting Hitler. And
yeah.
It's not going to work. I mean, I'm looking at what we actually put into the front line, you know, in the next 4 years, for example. Very little is the answer. There's going to be no increase in personnel. The only positive thing, it's something that's needed to come for ages, is that armed forces accommodation is going to improve.
Yeah.
Now, that's the benchmark we really need to see in the short term, because actually we've been putting our people up in dreadful conditions. This is a time, Mike, when, you know, we have 2 battalions landing on our shores every day at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of 2 and 3 para landing in the Falklands every day.
Yeah. It is extraordinary, isn't it? Let me ask you one final question about Lord Hermer, because you and I had a little exchange on Twitter. I'd said, you know, he's always been made to apologise by Number 10. You said he didn't apologise, because he hasn't really. He believes that good, decent people are Nazis. It's hate speech. Front page of the Telegraph today says he refused to review unduly lenient sentences given to a rapist, a paedophile, a terrorist fundraiser, rather. I mean, this guy surely has to go, doesn't he?
Well, you've got to ask, Mike, whether you and I as ordinary citizens trust the chief law officer of this country to be fair and balanced.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite extraordinary. He has not apologised for calling people who vote Tory or Reform Nazis. Now, you know, I've actually fought against a fascist regime, and by implication, he's calling me a Nazi. I mean, for heaven's sake, how can I get a fair trial in this country if I'm ever brought to court when, you know, he's saying things like that?
Right. And when it's very clear that he has a different set of rules when it comes to people like Lucy Connelly, who he obviously did not wish to refer for having a too seriously long sentence, and he obviously had his fingerprints all over it.
Mike, you know, there's the Nolan principles for conducting yourself in public life. You know, I'd like to see how Lord Hermer actually matches up against those. You know, when you allow your own political activist views to interfere with the administration of justice in this country, we are on the road to ruin when people can't trust it. We're back in the Middle Ages, if that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely right. Great to talk to you, Rear Admiral Chris Parry, making common sense, as ever, part of his absolute armoury. Incredible stuff. Let's get a voice note from Mark.
Morning, Mike. It's Mark from Derby. Really happy to hear you on talk again this morning, but unhappy, very angry about the number of migrants that came in on Sunday, 1,194. I'm just saying, let's put some military boats in the water, stop them, turn them back or pick them up, and then go back over to France and drop them in their shallow water. Because they can't intervene. They make it quite clear they can't intervene in shallow water. So let's just drop them just slightly offshore, like what they're doing when they get on the boat. Then finally destroy the boat, destroy the motor that runs the boat, and take that away so they can't use it again. If they say to me one more time there's nothing they can do about it, I think I'm going to throw my toys out of the pram. All the best, Mike. Great show. Bye.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. Warwick in Devon says, morning, Mike. Wonderful and antidepressant show as per usual. How ironic is it that Starmer and Lineker are talking so much about defence spending, etc., and yet they can't even prevent rubber boats coming over the channel. It's time to turn the lights off and head for the hills. Oh, on second thoughts, no need to turn the lights off, as Millie Brain will see to that. Absolutely right. This is Morning Glory.
So Axel Rudakubana, who is the Southport killer, what he has done, big story in front of the Sun yesterday, I'm sure you saw it, in regard to the privileges that he still has. He can buy Maltesers and various things. There can't be a governor who says to him, has a process, looks at the evidence and says, right, your privileges are being taken away, until the end of a police investigation.
Astonishing. If I was the prisons minister, that would be changed immediately with the stroke of a pen. I've never heard such woke, soft nonsense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:51. I'm Mike Graham with you, of course, all the way through until 10 o'clock. Frank in Bromley says, who signs off Lindsay Hoyle's expenses? They should also be held to account. And Sarah in Peterborough says, so all the Russians would have to do is send troops to France and put soldiers on a dinghy and send them over the channel. We are a laughing stock of the world. Well, I think there's a lot to be said for that, actually, which is ridiculous. Is Sean a new voice note? Let's have a listen.
Morning, Mike. Sean from Grimsby here. So we have almost 1,200 people come over the channel on one day. The ex-military man inside of me tells me that this is an invasion. I know it. Everyone knows it. Yet no one does anything. Government don't do anything. Army don't do anything. The Navy don't do anything. But don't worry, Mike. Everything will be all right. Because once these immigrants find out we've managed to ban single-use vapes, they're definitely not going to be coming over, are they? I think we need to get priorities right. Great show, Mike. Oh, P.S.
Oh, yeah, absolutely right. Sean, thank you very much indeed for that. The thing is, yeah, the single-use vapes thing, you know, they told everyone they were going to stop selling them. So guess what? Everybody started selling them off cheap all of last week. So if you wanted to get some single-use vapes, you just went into the shop yesterday and bought them all up because they weren't banned yet. Ridiculous. Now, we're about to talk to Vanessa Frake, former prison governor and author, of course, because we want to find out about whether prison wardens should be, and prison officers should be armed with tasers, baton rounds, because there's so many attacks now going on. But just before that, I just want to explain a little story to you that happened to me at the back end of last week. Sitting outside with a friend of mine, watching the world go by, having a glass of wine, watching a parking warden, funnily enough, suddenly pitch up and start putting a ticket on what was actually a car with a disabled sticker on it. And you can see we've clearly highlighted that. The little circle there is on the blue sticker in the car. It was parked just around the corner from here, not very far away, down in Borough Market by London Bridge. I said to myself, and I said to my friend as we were watching, surely if you've got a disability sticker, you don't get a parking ticket. Or do they now go through the ridiculous motion of saying, well, if you've got a disabled sticker, you have to then appeal it and say that you can't pay it because you've got a disabled sticker? What's the deal? I'd be interested to know if you've got a disabled sticker or if you know somebody that has. Do you get parking tickets and do you generally have to pay them? Because obviously everything that happens happens for a reason. The other weird thing about this particular parking warden is that he's got a face mask on in the middle of what was quite a nice hot summer's day. I don't understand why we were wearing a face mask outside unless he wanted to conceal his identity, which of course is what a lot of people use the mask for. But it's just an interesting one. I don't know the answer to it, so I wanted to ask you, get your help with it. If you've got a disabled parking sticker, what do you do if you get a parking ticket? Do you appeal it? Do you pay it? Do they make you pay it? If so, what's the point of having the disabled parking sticker? Just a quick question. I'll look forward to getting the answers. Let's talk to Vanessa Frake now, because Vanessa, there's been so many stories recently about violent events inside of prisons. We've heard from Robert Jenrick on the subject. He's talked about how dangerous gangs are running an awful lot of the prisons in this country. What's your view on whether prison officers should be armed?
Personally, Mike, good morning, by the way.
Sorry.
Look, I think it's a really bad idea. The thought of a prison officer being overthrown and his weapon or her weapon taken off them and used against them fills me with absolute dread. Prisons are confined spaces. The average size of a cell is 6 foot by 8 foot.
Yeah.
To use a taser, you've got to be at least 15 foot away. Landings in jails are about 3 or 4 foot wide. You know, there just isn't the space. And let's not forget, you know, the 3 officers injured at Franklin by a beady, they didn't have time to draw. They carry batons, they carry pava spray. They didn't have time to draw them. Most incidents like this happen in the spur of a moment.
Yes, and as you say, the most dangerous thing of all would be if these terribly dangerous prisoners, because they got nothing to lose, just launch themselves at the individuals with the weapons, and that could be even worse, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And 40% of the time, you know, tasers don't work on individuals. It depends on their mental health.
Right.
It depends whether they're fueled with drugs. Some people are resistant to it. You've got to rely on the operator using it. You know, there are so many variables that I think it's a really bad idea. You know, when I was at Scrubs, we had David Cameron when he was Prime Minister in. Even his personal protection weren't allowed to bring their guns in.
Right.
It's a strict no-no.
Right. I mean, would it then make more sense for some of these prisoners, particularly those in high security units, who are not coming out anytime soon and possibly never coming out, would it be better to restrict their movement perhaps and maybe only let them out every now and again, a certain period of time during the day when they can't interact with anybody else and they certainly can't have access to a kitchen or a place where they could actually manufacture a weapon of some kind?
Well, look, there are many very dangerous, high-risk prisoners in our jails that we have appeased for so long. I think there's a three-pronged approach here. One is to introduce a supermax-style prison where prisoners are kept, such as those are kept in solitary confinement. They're handcuffed when they come out. They're escorted by 3 staff with an officer with a patrol dog. They have limited items in their cell. There's restricted visits. You know, the lists are endless as to what you can do. The other thing is to stop the drones coming in. You know, having a 400-metre no-fly zone around our prisons does nothing. Doesn't deter people. Doesn't deter the gangs from getting drones in. And there are many things that we can do about that. Laser detection systems, making sure windows are secure, cells are secure. AI systems can even detect, track and identify drones, update our CCTV cameras. And the third thing is issue staff with stab vests. Why we have to have this investigation about, you know, should people wear stab vests or not in jails?
Yeah.
Well, you know, come on.
I know.
Just get on with it.
I'm told that the reason for that as well is that the officials don't want them to look too intimidating, which is insane.
Yes, and that was Robert Jenrick's Conservative Party, I'll just say there, that said, oh no, we can't issue prison staff with stab vests. It would look too intimidating.
Yeah. I've got a quick clip, I think, in Jenrick. Let's have a look at it.
We have a major problem with Islamist gangs in our prisons. Through appeasement and weak leadership, they've been able to take control of prison wings. There are reports of Sharia courts enforced by floggings and beatings. The Times reports that separation centres designed to contain the people capable of radicalisation are now being used as shelters from the people that they're targeting. Paedophiles and serial killers like Levi Belfield are converting to Islam for protection. Prison officers even say that sniffer dogs in the unit that contained the Manchester Arena plotter, Hashim Abedi, were called off for fear of offending Muslim terrorists.
And all of that sounds mad. There's an amazing story as well about a teen...
To me, Mike, it sounds like a leadership video.
Well, it does. I mean, most of his videos do, to be honest. I mean, there's another story in the Mail today about a teenage terrorist called Nathan Ruth, who's a Muslim convert extremist, who's apparently stabbed 10 prison officers since being locked up, and he's now being moved to an NHS unit where he can enjoy board games and film nights. I mean, it doesn't sound like a great idea, does it?
No, absolutely not. No, it doesn't. And this is what I mean. You know, for too long we've appeased these prisoners.
Yeah.
I have to say I'm shocked that you know, sniffer dogs weren't permitted. because of somebody's religion. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
We certainly didn't have that at Scrubs. Didn't matter what religion you were, you went over the sniffer dogs, and they went in your cells.
I mean, to be honest, nothing surprises me anymore, Vanessa, so I wouldn't be at all shocked if that turns out to be absolutely right. Good to talk to you, Vanessa Frake. Thank you very much indeed, former prison governor and author. Coming up in the next hour, Anne Widdecombe is going to be joining us. We'll get her take on what's been going on. Also, Harry Cole joins us. He's got a big piece this morning in The Sun. He's been talking to Nigel Farage. We'll get the latest from him, all after the news.
How much, ladies and gentlemen, are fish and chips where you come from? We'll go to Jason in Crewe.
Jason from Crewe, fish, chips and peas, £7.50. It's the best chippy in England.
Janice in Leeds, go.
Regarding fish and chips in Leeds, it's between £9.50 and £12.75.
Whitby, how much is fish and chips?
3 of us, fish, chips, peas, I think one of us curry sauce, 3 cans of pop, just short of £70.
£70? That's 23 quid a head, man. Even my maths does that. Very quickly, a voice note. Campbell in Scotland, go.
Up here in Banff in the northeast of Scotland, we can get a fillet and a half of haddock with a regular chips for £8 and 10 pence, and it's by far and away one of the best chippies I've ever had.
Kenneth in Surrey, fish and chips, go.
Fish and chips in Ascot, about half a mile from where you used to live, will cost you £12 and 60 pence. Great show. Keep up the good work.
That's why I moved, because you were living there. When was the last time you had fish and chips?
Couple of weeks
How
ago.
much? Where'd you get it from?
I think it was about 40 quid. It was in the Ivy.
Honestly, you really are. For any of you who think he's a man of the people, I nearly said you're a...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 4 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10, of course, as well. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here. Morning, Mike. The French are not unable to stop the migrant boats. They're unwilling to stop them. Everyone knows they just want to get rid of them, says Keith in Lincolnshire. I think that's right. You know, the idea that somehow we're going to be stopping the boats and smashing the gangs because the French are all going to help now. They're all going to get into the sea and start arresting people who are leaving their shores. Why would they? They want them to leave their shores. They're not interested in keeping them in France. They're not interested in putting them through any kind of judicial system. And what would they be arresting them for anyway? I mean, heaven forbid, arrest them for arriving. You don't arrest them for leaving. You go, see ya, cheerio, see you on your way. We've got lots more to talk about there. 1,194 illegal migrants crossing the channel in 18 boats on Saturday. We await the figures from Sunday, although it was a little bit more windy. Anne Widdecombe's coming up in this hour. She's going to talk to us about the boats crisis, but also the Strategic Defence Review as well, where we've heard from former NATO Commander Chris Parry, who said basically it's all smoke and mirrors. There's an awful lot of money being pushed away down the drain because, in fact, it won't be 10 years before we see any of these new submarines that are supposedly being built, and he doesn't even know whether they're going to build 12 of them. They're going to be up to 12, so it might be 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to take a long time, though, and we're supposed to be war-ready, according to Keir Starmer and John Healey, the Defence Minister. Let's get a voice note from Darren.
Mike, Darren from Suffolk. Just imagine if a terrorist organisation said, let's put 1,000 of our men on a boat today. What would happen if they were all armed and they got to Kent And they split in groups of 10, that's 100 groups of 10, all went off in different directions and started causing mayhem with the weapons that they bring across. How could we react? We couldn't. We'd be finished. That's just one day. They need to get a grip.
Absolutely, we do need to get a grip. Lord Hermer is under fire this morning as well, of course, as it turns out that not only did he basically call people who want to get rid of the ECHR, New Vote Reform and Tory Nazis last week, it also turns out that he was involved in the sentencing of Lucy Connelly, and he was also involved in not altering some very lenient sentencing for a rapist, a paedophile and a terrorist fundraiser, all of whom got shorter term times than Lucy Connelly did for a tweet. So, according to Harry Cole, who's up later on this hour, Lord Hermer is toast, but somebody has to tell the Prime Minister. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Also, we've got Lindsay Hoyle, living the high life. This is the Speaker of the House of Commons. We know he went to the Caribbean. What we didn't know was he spent £5,500 on private planes jumping from one island to another. Island hopping, they call it. Normally you have to pay for it yourself. Not in his case. We paid for it for him. 6 minutes past 8. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. What's that I hear behind me? Is that the incessant pipping of the submarine? There he is. I see no migrants. Because he doesn't see them. He doesn't stop them. The only way they can stop the invasion on our shores is to stop the benefits, says Patty in Kingston. I'm so angry and totally sick of being robbed blind by these people and put in danger by compliant governments, totally failing in their first duty. And one from Ray in York, who says, why should I have to stand in line at Heathrow Passport Control with a British passport for longer than it takes to process illegal migrants at Dover without passports or any documents whatsoever? And when will the RNLI stop facilitating the illegal transportation of illegal migrants? Well, a lot of people will share your concerns about that. Let's talk to Anne Whittaker, Reform UK's Immigration and Justice spokesperson, former Home Office Minister, of course, as well. Anne, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
People are getting very worked up at the moment about this problem with the boats. You know, it's no longer acceptable just to count them in and not count them out. 1,194 crossed the channel in 18 boats on Saturday, heralding what looks like a pretty busy summer for the calmer seas, as it were. I mean, I'd predicted, I think about 2 months ago, that 1,000 a day plus would come one day soon, and it came, sure enough, just before the end of May. There's no sign that this is happening any less. In fact, if anything, it's getting worse, isn't it?
Well, quite inevitably, because what has become clearer every day with the current administration is that they haven't got any plan whatever to stop the boats. Now, what Starmer does is to carry on about disrupting the business models of the people smugglers. And he seems to think that that is the way to solve this.
Yeah.
And of course it isn't, because people smugglers can be replaced by other people smugglers. Organisations can be replaced. And there has been, therefore, not only no significant drop in the numbers coming, but a positive increase, as they've realised there's no reason why they shouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, other than the danger of the crossing, there is no deterrent whatever.
No. In fact, quite the reverse. There's plenty of incentives, aren't there? Because if you can make it over, and the odds are, and I know that people will say yes, but some people do die on the boat crossings, and it does happen. But it's a pretty low risk in terms of the numbers alone. Because if you look at how many people do come, I think it's 35,000 plus since Labour have been in power since last July. So you're looking at possibly 40,000, maybe even 50 by the time we reach the end of this month. You know, not that many of them don't make it, as it were.
No, as I say, the only deterrent is the risk involved in the crossing. There is no other deterrent. And therefore, if you're willing to take that risk, and you know, as you've just rehearsed the statistics, most people take that risk quite successfully.
Yeah.
If you're willing to take that risk, you end up in a country which will put you in a hotel, which will take a very long time indeed to process your application, which will give you umpteen rights of appeal, and a country which has a flourishing underground economy, and therefore a country in which it's very easy to disappear. We have no national identity cards, we don't practice detention, very, very easy to disappear.
And the other thing is that we now know, because the prisons are full up, that it's very, very difficult to send anybody to prison who hasn't committed probably a minimum of about 50 crimes. You know, so if you're coming here to create what might be called low-level crime, whether it's shoplifting, whether it's pinching people's phones, whether it's getting on the back of a moped, you know, and robbing people, you know, there's a pretty good chance that, one, you won't get caught at all, but if you do get caught, you won't be going to jail.
And you won't be deported.
Yeah.
You know, so just add it up. Yeah, just add it up.
Absolutely right. Which makes it even more bizarre, it seems to me, and this is where I'm going to try and link the two things. For Keir Starmer to put this, Number 10 put this tweet out yesterday, a little sort of video couplet, if you like, of Keir Starmer talking about defence of the realm.
Is always the safety and security of the United Kingdom. And that's why we're boosting defence spending, the largest sustained increase since the Cold War. An increase of £13.4 billion year on year. Not just meeting our commitment to spend 2.5% of our GDP on defence, but bringing it forward to 2027. And alongside that, a new ambition for defence spending to rise to 3% of GDP in the next Parliament. We'll publish a strategic defence review to determine how we can best meet the threats of today and return Britain to war-fighting readiness, secure at home, strong abroad.
I don't think we're secure at home. I don't think we're strong abroad. What do you think?
Absolutely neither. This isn't just the current government. We've had staggering complacency on the part of successive governments ever since the end of the Cold War, when more or less, when the Berlin Wall had come down in '89, people thought, well, you know, there isn't any need any longer to maintain our deterrence and all the rest of it at the strategic level it then was. Let's say run it down. And since then, we've seen a decline in the numbers of manpower in our armed services, a decline in the reserve, a decline in armaments, absolutely everywhere. And the idea that this, over the course of, 10 years? Well, you know, supposing the enemy doesn't want to wait 10 years.
Well, it's a bit difficult, isn't it? I mean, I just spoke to Chris Parry a little while ago, who said it's a bit like saying in 1937, we're going to go after Adolf Hitler around about 10 years from now. You know, it would have been 10 years too late, really, wouldn't it?
Well, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. You know, there's no guarantee an enemy is going to be prepared to sit around and wait for you to satisfactorily arm yourself. There ought to be a greater degree of urgency, and of course, one of the reasons why there is now such emphasis on defence isn't just that we've got a more dangerous world at the moment. It is that Trump has said, you know, that NATO has got to get its act together and that it's got to meet its spending commitments, and that individual countries within NATO have got to cough up what they're committed to.
Yes.
If he hadn't done that, we wouldn't have this sudden emphasis.
No, quite. And the problem is as well that, you know, here a lot of the spending is kind of put to one side. You know, it's not being spent immediately. You know, our spending, I think they've put a few billion aside, which they say they're going to open up some munitions factories. Again, all of that takes time. But again, what Chris Parry said was a lot of the munitions companies will just put their prices up when they see that the government is willing to spend money. You know, the free market system will kick in and suddenly, you know, toilet seats will be back up to sort of £65 again.
Well, that's very much up to government negotiators, so you don't need to be held to ransom. But
I don't think for what we've seen so far of government negotiations, they're very good at it.
No, I agree. But what I'm saying is, you know, that is not an inevitability. Let's resign ourselves to what we think of as inevitabilities when there are no such thing. And we do need to get defence right up to the top of the agenda, along with control of our borders, if we're to be a safe country. Because, as I always say, defence is your first social security. Doesn't matter what other wonderful systems you've got in place. If you're not adequately defended, you're not self-sufficient in basic food, and you're not self-sufficient in energy, and we fail on all three counts, then your country is not safe.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And it is shockingly kind of open, this country, to sort of abuse. It seems as though in every area, whether it's benefits, whether it's, you know, just breaking into the country willy-nilly without any kind of passport or any kind of papers, whether it's committing the crimes that no longer really get punished, it doesn't seem to be any part of our infrastructure, if you like, in terms of the legal infrastructure of this country that works terribly well.
No, and that is because there is a huge absence of will. You really do need will, the sort of will that Margaret Thatcher showed when she wanted to turn the country around. You do actually need will. You do need the guts to be unpopular from time to time. And you do need to get your priorities in the right order. And I don't think this government has got will. I don't think it's got its priorities in the right order. And as soon as it becomes unpopular, it goes into retreat.
Yeah, exactly right. And you were involved in looking after prisons for a while. I'm looking at a story in the Mail today, and this is on the back of whether or not prison officers should be armed, or they should be at least able to use methods other than simply restraint with prisoners, particularly dangerous prisoners. A teenage terrorist in the Daily Mail who has stabbed 10 prison officers since being locked up has now been moved to an NHS unit where he can enjoy board games and film nights. He's 18 years old. He was jailed for 7 years in 2024 after being convicted of plotting a terrorist attack at the Isle of Wight festival. He's attacked more and more guards everywhere he's been, and now he apparently has stabbed so many officers while he's in Feltham Young Offenders Institution. He openly boasted to staff that you'll see him on the news one day. And they can't believe they've let him go, and he's gone to this unit which is not terribly secure.
Well, the security is an issue. The fact is that some prisoners really should have had a mental health diagnosis much earlier than they got one. And when they do get one, then you move them to, but let me stress this, a secure hospital. You're talking about your Broadmoors. Or the medium secure units, which there are up and down the country. What you're not talking about is any sort of lax open institution, and that won't be. If he's been transferred for his mental health, that probably is a good thing, quite honestly.
Well, as long as he can't get his hands on any knives, I suppose that'll be fine.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Let's just talk very quickly about reform, because today is the day when the first sort of Doge team is going to be sent into Kent, one of the many councils that reform is now in control of. Zia Youssef announced it yesterday, saying that there's going to be a party assembled team of software engineers, data analysts and auditors to inspect the 10 local authorities. Do you anticipate this being something difficult to do or something easy to do?
It will be something that's resisted, and therefore to that extent it might be difficult. But on the other hand, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is will. And if we've got the will to do this and the will to make thorough assessments of how our money is being spent, then I think that is a good thing, and it will be a test of will on the part of the reform councillors who are now in place, on the part of the team that actually goes in. But we would be fools not to expect some resistance.
Yes, quite. I mean, some people are questioning the legality of it as well. I mean, we see what Elon Musk did in America, some effective stuff that he did, some not so effective, because it depends on, who's suing whom around all of it. But I mean, is there a legal problem with this, with doing something like this? I'm not sure it's ever been done before in the UK, has it?
No, and there may be legal challenges, but if there are, then we will have to stand up to those. And it will speak volumes. If councils aren't prepared to have their books thoroughly examined and their practices examined with a view to making savings on behalf of citizens, then, that says it all.
It does. And the amounts of money involved are quite prodigious, aren't they? I mean, billions and billions of pounds that they're being controlled by these people. Yes,
we forget that. And when you look at, the thing cumulatively, councils up and down the land, there is undeniably an awful lot of flabbiness in the expenditure, and we need to get priorities, and we need to get control.
Yeah. Great to speak to you. Anne Widdecombe, thank you very much indeed. Reform's UK's Immigration and Justice spokesperson, former Home Office Minister, of course, herself. Lots of you getting in touch about the disabled parking scenario. Joanna from Salisbury says, Mike, disabled badges mean you can park on single or double yellow lines. The only reason the attendant could give the car a ticket is if there was a specific sign, no parking, including disabled persons. Well, I'm not sure if there is such a sign. The mask was easy in the ULEZ zones, protecting themselves from emissions from the underground railway being pumped up to street level. Well, yeah, I mean, that's, of course, if you consider the view that masks actually don't really protect you very much from very much at all. Also, Cliff has been in touch saying it could well be if there was loading restrictions, you can obviously get a ticket, or if there's causing an obstruction or up on the pavement. I'm pretty sure it's just a double yellow line. Where that car was, and then he says sometimes an offence will be notified on the ticket if there was a problem like the badge being upside down or a timer clock expired. I'm pretty sure they weren't there for very long, because they came shortly. The person who was the disabled driver came shortly thereafter to drive the car away. but different restrictions exist in different places. It's not that straightforward, apparently. So keep those pieces of information coming, because I was under the impression that if you had a disabled sticker, you couldn't get a ticket of any kind. But obviously that's not entirely true. It's 8:20.
So Axel Rudakubana, who is the Southport...
Let's give those brave men and women who are in our jails the tools they need to do their job and feel safe. Let's give them baton rounds, tasers, high-neck stab-proof vests, which, I mean, it's amazing they don't have those already. And in our maximum security jails where they deal with these extreme high-risk people like Axel Rudakubana or Hashim Mabedi, let's ensure that there is a secure armoury where specialist officers can go and get access to lethal weapons. So if these situations, God forbid, arise, they can regain control of the prison quickly.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:23. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Jim says this, if you get a ticket, if you don't display the time you are going to be there, you must show the clock. And one here from Lorinda, who says, I've got a blue badge. I was attending an appointment at the Royal Orthopaedic Hospital in central London. I parked in a blue bay space, displayed my badge and clock. When I got back to my car, I had a fine. The reason stated by the City of Westminster, parked in a bay that wasn't marked blue badge. Turns out that although the blue badge signs were along the path, I hadn't seen a separate sign that said for residents only. I tried appealing, stating that I had to drive because of the nature of an appointment and disability, but Khan's computer says no. So with the cost from Cambridge to London, the parking fine and the charges, which I didn't learn till after the blue badge holders get reduced congestion charge and ULEZ charges, I could have gone to Spain for the weekend. I mean, unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, they just rinse you coming and going, I'm afraid, in this country. Unless, of course, you arrive here on a small boat. Let's talk... before we talk to Harry Cole, Ivor's got a little song for us on Starmer.
Have you solved a problem like the Kia 29?
Ivor, very good indeed. Well played, that man. Harry Cole, I mean, I don't know how you follow that, really. Political editor at The Sun. It's got a great column in the irresistible rise of Nigel Farage, but he's still got a long way to go. Harry, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. I don't think I'm going to be singing. I've got pretty bad hay fever, so I've put my keyboard away.
Well, maybe you should be on a boat with Sir Keir Starmer, because apparently it seems like he's been giving an interview to Nick Robinson of the BBC. He's just confirmed to the BBC that he cannot give a date for when the UK will spend 3% of GDP on defence. I mean, all we know from the little tweets that he put out yesterday and from what John Healey said, it's all going to be in the next Parliament, they think.
Well, yeah. It looks to me like a sort of cabinet row has spilt over the Sunday papers and the broadcast and the airwaves in the fact that John Healey came out and said, "Yep, we're going to do this, 3%, great," and then they rode back, and now it's it's an aspiration and an aim. It's not guaranteed. I think there was a minister out this morning who said, no doubt it will be hit by the next Parliament, but no doubt very much is not a guarantee. So. Once again, the government looking like they're sort of over-promising, and once you get into the detail, slightly under-delivering.
That's the problem, isn't it? Well, a lot of papers this morning calling it the deal's in disarray. It's a rollback. It's not really what it's promised to be. Chris Parry, I spoke to a bit earlier, former NATO commander, said it's a bit like saying in 1937, we're going to build a load of ships to take on Hitler. They'll be ready to go by about 1950.
Well, exactly. It's clear that we need to up our game nationally on defence, but it's once again it comes down to the money. And Rachel Reeves is already she's already missed her headroom once. She's probably looking at missing her headroom again in the autumn. She's got the spending review coming up, and everything's been slightly mangled. It's all slightly done in the wrong order, I think, in the fact that. You should work out how much money they've got, what they're willing to spend, and then work out how to spend it, rather than try to say what they want to spend it on and then go with a begging bowl cap in hand round to the Treasury to be told no. Yeah, because it doesn't look as if there's any real cogent Treasury policy at the moment. It's not really that clear what Rachel Reeves is going to do over the course of the summer, in terms even just of how much borrowing they're going to do. Well, there's constant negotiations, the spending reviews. I mean, June 11th, I think it is. That's obviously clearly going down to the wire with some departments. You've got we're told Angela Rayner's department's holding out for more money. The Home Office, it's meant to be a central mission of the government to cut crime. Yeah. And yet they're cutting potentially having to cut the policing budget. So behind the scenes, Rachel Reeves and her deputy Darren Jones are basically in live negotiations with various cabinet ministers. All making their pitches and carving up was looking like an increasingly small pot. Absolutely. I'll come to your column on Nigel Farage this morning in a second, but I just wanted to ask you about your tweet about Lord Hermer this morning, or you put it out late last night saying you think he's toast. It's a fascinating story in the Telegraph today saying that he refused to review unduly lenient sentences given to a rapist, a paedophile and a terrorist fundraiser, despite signing off on the prosecution of Lucy Connelly. They all got shorter jail terms than she got. Yeah, every time you read Lord Hermer's name in any paper, in any story, he seems to be sort of trying to work out whose side is he on it. He's not a politician. Yeah. An old mate of the Prime Minister's from his law days, who he's stuck in that job. He seems to be sort of meddling in all sorts of things, or not meddling in some cases when he should be or could be. And the point of that tweet, I just think at some point. It looks pretty clear from where I'm sitting. This guy's political road looks fairly short, and it seems to me the only person I can still find defending him, and that includes people in government, is his old mucker, the Prime Minister. Yeah. He's infuriated some members of the cabinet with sort of overzealous legal restrictions on what he's putting on ministers who are trying to do stuff, trying to get stop boats, smash these gangs and the like, and coming up against his over-judicious interpretation of things. And have a look at that Chagos deal as well. You can see his sticky little fingerprints all over that. Well, that's the trouble, isn't it? And I mean, the problem is that it's a bit like Tulip Sadiq, isn't it? It took a long time to get her out of the way because she was a friend of Keir Starmer's. She eventually had to resign from the cabinet. This looks like it's going the same way, doesn't it? Well, I think, we were told there's going to be a reshuffle until the autumn now. There was meant to be, there was mooted to be one in the next few weeks, but that's been put off until I think it's clearer what's going on with the economy and whether that Labour are going to have to rip up their fiscal rules, and that potentially means possibly a new Chancellor in the autumn. So I think when the inevitable reshuffle comes, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Lord Hermer thanked for his service and given a pat on the back and quietly moved on. Yeah, lots of Prime Ministers find this, that actually the Attorney General is such a key appointment in the government that you do really need someone that's willing to play the game. This is a government that's trying to do things, not a government that should be trying to stop things. Having numero uno human rights lawyer, Mr. ECHR, trying to sort of be a block within government, you're making a rod for your own back. Yeah, it really is embarrassing. Speaking of chancellors, your piece says today that maybe it's time that Nigel Farage appoints Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer. He says he's going to take a bit of a step back. You've been talking to him over the weekend. What was his mood? Well, so I just noticed in my diary, it was literally 365 years ago to the day tomorrow, I think it is, that Nigel Farage surprised everyone and came back into frontline politics, came back as leader of reform, and I thought it was worth marking of what a year that has been.
Yeah.
He went from 0 MPs, not even an MP himself, to what we saw in the local elections last year. He's on 30% in the polls, and I just wanted to have a long chat with him about what the next 365 days looks like. How you go from sort of year one of reform and where they've got to now, which is frankly out front with a giant target on his back. If you're ahead in the polls at this time in the cycle, you've got to annoy everyone. He's got the Tories coming after him. He's got Labour coming after him. The PM, he's living rent free in the PM's head, as the joke went last week. And so, how do reforms sort of up their game? Obviously, they're behind the scenes. They're hiring lots of candidates and professionalising the operation. But when it comes to the next election, they've got to be able to present a credible, future government. And so, what we saw last week was the first time that reform sort of dipped a toe into anything that wasn't really detailed immigration policy on the economy, made a lot of big spending commitments. It gave his struggling opponents suddenly a chance to really rip into reform. And the numbers, frankly, didn't really stack up. We need to see... Sorry, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Bloody hay fever. I'm going to sneeze again, but I'm going to keep trying to make this point while I do it. I didn't sing for you, but I will do a comedy turn nonetheless. What is a reform government potentially going to look like? Because, yes, he's got a lot of support now, but he needs to win over some waverers, and those numbers didn't quite stack up last week. As I said, it gave his opponents an opportunity to get in there and sort of rip him apart in a way that they didn't really have anything to hit him with. Before that. So if they are going to make those sort of big policy announcements and show the voters, wavering voters especially, what a reform government's going to look like, they need to have some other figures other than Farage around them. And if they are going to bring in external figures and say, look, this person will be in government when they are an MP next time, but they're not an MP now, why not get on with that? If Nigel Farage wants to step back slightly, as I think he does, and promote other people within the party, in a bit like the way Donald Trump in the run up to November last year did, where he was the key figure, but he started surrounding himself with other figures who would be in big government jobs in the campaign. And let's get going on that. And why not have a shadow chancellor if the economy is going to dominate the conversation for the next 3 years, given the state it's in? Who would be running reform numbers? Let's see.
And I suppose it could be that the style of what he now does is a bit different. I was saying to Anne Widdecombe, because she's his spokesperson on sort of crime and justice at the moment, without having necessarily an elected job. In the same way that he's putting this, or Zia Yusuf anyway, is putting in this kind of team of people to check out what councils are spending their money on, starting today in Kent. I mean, that could potentially be a bit of a banana skin as well, couldn't it?
Well, what reform now have is they've got their hands on some levers. They can show voters, for better or worse, what it looks like when they actually run something. So they really need to get this stuff right. They really need to show that actually, when they're given control, when they're given executive power, be it on a quite a low level in county level, they can get stuff done. They can get results. They can do things differently, and they've got that all over the country. So it's good to see them getting started on that. Potentially they've got the Welsh Assembly to target next year. They're doing look potentially like they're going to beat Labour into third this week in a by-election in Scotland. Farage is up there for the first time in a long time today. So they really cannot cock this up if they want to maintain that position as that's the opposition in all but effect, but also out there in the polls, that 30%. If they keep where they are now, above 30%, there is a realistic chance that they will take a lot of seats at the next election. So they need to sort of reassure. They've got a lot of support now, but they need to get a little bit more over the line. And it's those wavering voters, those sort of former Tory voters, I suspect that are very sympathetic to reforms calls, but they're a little bit worried about whether they'll ever actually achieve anything. And I think if they can prove themselves worthy in local government, then they have a very good case to say, well, look, give us bigger levers, give us bigger tools, give us government departments to run, give us the Welsh Assembly the Welsh Executive to run. So all eyes on what they actually do.
Excellent stuff. Harry Cole, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. And sorry about the hay fever. Political editor of The Sun there. Harry Cole, column this morning, all about Nigel Farage. 365 days ago tomorrow was when he decided to re-enter British politics. If you remember, before the election, he wasn't going to run for a seat. He wasn't going to run as an MP, but then he decided to do it. And everything changed, really, ever since then. So it's quite an extraordinary year to mark, and very well done for doing so. Let's get a quick voice note from Brian.
Morning, Mike, from Southend. God, this boat thing's got to stop, isn't it? This is absolutely out of control, as it's been for ages, but this is getting worse and worse. Anyway, you know, people have got to start standing up in Parliament. They've got to start questioning everything, from this border czar, whatever he is, what is he doing? And, you know, just ask these people, you know, what exactly is happening? You know, we got to stop the legal aid, stop the benefits, stop these human rights lawyers, change the laws. We've got to do something, otherwise we're getting overrun.
We are absolutely getting overrun. It's absolutely ridiculous. But here's Keir Starmer, who got terribly excited about one bloke that they managed to arrest.
It is good news that today a man suspected of being a significant supplier of small boat equipment has been arrested. Criminal gangs have been getting away with this for far too long. I want to thank the UK National Crime Agency, along with their Dutch and Belgian counterparts, for all their hard work and their crucial role in this investigation. It's exactly what we want to see. And it shows that our approach of working with international partners to smash the people smuggling gangs is bearing fruit. In just over 4 months since the election, we've rapidly set up a new border security command, bringing together key agencies to disrupt people smuggling gangs.
I mean, it's hard to say, isn't it? People smuggling gangs. If you try saying it over and over again, you still don't ever get snaggling guns, do you? How do you ever get to that? Snaggling guns. That was in November. They arrested one guy, right, who they believed was a major supplier of boat parts, whatever that means. They don't seem to have got anybody else. Now, since November, let's see, December, January, February, March, April, May. 6 months later, they haven't arrested anybody else. 6 months later, the trail seems to have gone cold. So all of the National Crime Agency people, the people in the Netherlands, the people in Belgium, the people in France, haven't managed to conjure up anybody else that they think may be part of the snaggling gangs. Do you know what I mean? Why not? And what on earth is going on with the Border Security Commander, Martin Hewitt? What's he doing? What's he been doing? It's 8:39.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:41. I'm Mike Graham. Julie Hartley-Brewer coming up at 10 o'clock, of course. Jerry Carl's back at 4. Kevin O'Sullivan at 7. Ian Collins from 1, of course. This is the home of common sense. Everyone but anyone who has got an indication of common sense in their body will be watching this and no other show, because why would you? 14,520 migrants arrived here in 2025. It's 35,000 plus now that have come here under Labour's government since July of last year. Let's talk now to James Cartley, Shadow Defence Secretary, about the Strategic Defence Review, which Keir Starmer is unveiling today, already reaching some heights of controversy because the promises are not quite what they were supposed to be. James, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Always a pleasure.
Good to see you. Keir Starmer's confirmed to the BBC this morning that he cannot give a date for when the UK will spend 3% of GDP on defence. So it's a sort of a hope and an ambition and an aim rather than a guarantee, it would seem.
Mike, you made the key point, and I'd say it's an unravelling, because essentially on Thursday, John Healey, the Defence Secretary, did an interview in the Times where he said it was a certainty they would spend 3%. He's then had to resolve from that, completely backtracking, and now you've got the Prime Minister, as you say quite rightly, can't even give a date. The reason that's so significant is this. We know from the authors of the Strategic Defence Review, Lord Robertson and General Barrons and Fiona Hill, who wrote in the Telegraph today, that they wrote it on the basis of an assumption of 3%. So if we're not going to get 3%, how can we trust any of the promises in the SDR itself?
Yeah, well, that's a very, very good question. And also, all sorts of things, even before they get to the 3% promise, are talked about as if they're going to be coming in the next Parliament. You know, the sort of munitions factories being opened, hundreds of thousands of jobs being made available, you know, more missiles being produced. You know, it's all a bit sort of pie in the sky, it seems to me, isn't it?
Again, a really good point, Mike, because, you know, something I was clear on when I was Defence Procurement Minister is we have got to focus on the near-term threat. If people really think, and I agree with them, there is a threat that Russia could attack a NATO country in the next few years, that means plans that give us capability into the 2030s and beyond aren't going to cut it. Now, that doesn't mean, by the way, we shouldn't, for example, build new submarines. They're programmes that take a long time and we need them. But I agree with you, there does need to be this greater focus on the near-term threat. And I'll give you an example. You know, it's one thing to promise brand new ships that will be built many years from now. Are we going to procure the missiles that we need on our current naval ships to defend them against the sort of threat we have seen in real life in the Red Sea, when the Houthis were given ballistic missiles by the Iranians and they fired them at our ships? These are the big questions about defending the people we have today.
Yeah. And in terms of those submarines and how many submarines are being built, do you know what that number is? Because I was talking to Rear Admiral Chris Parry a little while back, a former NATO commander, and he said that the small print says up to 12 submarines. So it's not that clear exactly how many they're actually going to build.
I have great respect. Chris is a great man. I have a lot of respect for him. He knows his stuff. As you say, he was a very senior officer in the Navy. And it's those magic words, as he's identified, up to, because he's had this before. I think it was up to 12 Type 45 destroyers. Yeah. They're the air defence ships that we currently have. I think in the end it was 6. And I think so I hope that your colleagues in the media pack will be saying to the Prime Minister, can you guarantee it's actually 12? Because up to could mean anything. What you and I both know is, frankly, if you don't have the money behind you, everything is uncertain, whether it's the number of submarines, what year these factories were built, etc.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about the migrants. Chris Philp, your colleague, the Shadow Home Secretary, is asking for the government to stop any commercial fishing deal that they have with France until such time as the migrant situation is sorted out. We saw nearly 1,200 come over on Saturday with the help, it would seem, of the French border patrol. They didn't seem to be interested in doing anything apart from taking pictures of them leaving. I mean, it's a bit of a no-brainer, this, but of course, you know, they keep telling us, the Labour government, that, you know, we're secure at home and we're strong abroad. I'm not sure we're either of those things at the moment, are we?
It's such a good point, because look, we saw how as you say, the French police seem to be standing there not doing very much. But how keen were they to act when they wanted to get hold of British trawlers who they thought, were operating without a licence or whatever the allegation was? And I would just put this to you, because actually it still relates to defence. If you recall, Labour made a big song and dance about having a pact with the EU for defence. And that was about getting access to this EU defence fund. Now, they've not secured a single penny of that fund, but they've given away our fishing grounds. You're absolutely right. This question has to be thrown at the Prime Minister. Why is it he's given away the Chagos Islands without attempting to resist any legal challenge that may or may not come? It's entirely hypothetical. Why didn't he appeal the Supreme Court, the court ruling, which means our soldiers who served in Northern Ireland once again face the threat of lawfare persecution in the courts? And yes, on fish, why did he give away the fish before we've got anything to the United Kingdom? Hopeless negotiation, and as you say, someone who doesn't seem to be standing up for this country at home or abroad, quite frankly.
No, quite. And somebody said to me this weekend, all the fish in the channel seem to be French, but all the migrants seem to be British.
I think, touche to them.
Yeah, exactly right. Let me ask you one final one about Lord Hermer, who's in more trouble yet again this morning. Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, who was calling people Nazis for voting Tory and Reform last week. It now turns out that he decided to not look at sentencing of a paedophile, a rapist and a terrorist fundraiser, all of whom who got more lenient sentences than Lucy Connelly. A lot of people think it's time that he was dispatched somewhere else. What do you think?
Well, I have a huge amount of sympathy, Mike, because, that point you make, when he said we were Nazis, he said we were Nazis because we questioned the ECHR. Now, I look at it, again, from a defence point of view. It is precisely because of the ECHR that our veterans, those brave veterans who served in Northern Ireland to protect you and I from terrorism, are once again faced with the threat of a reopening of all these terrible cases against old men who served their country and simply obeyed the chain of command. So we're right to question it. And I have many more questions about it. I've said on the record, if Starmer's serious about sending our troops to Ukraine, we should derogate from the ECHR for any deployment, because the Ukrainians have derogated, Russia isn't even a subscriber. So we should be able to have that debate without being called Nazis by the Attorney General. He's represented Jerry Adams. I think you're right, and I think a lot of people agree with that sentiment.
Yeah, good to speak to you. Thank you very much indeed. James Cartledge there, Shadow Defence Secretary, reporting in to us from College Green down in Westminster. Let's get a voice note from Jay on Lord Hermer.
Hi, good morning, Mike. It's Jay from Stockport. Just a quick one over Lord Hermer. When he's called people Nazis, and that was just clumsy. He didn't apologise, and the excuses came out. Oh, it was just something that he came out. It's just a bit clumsy what he said, and obviously he regrets it now. Really, and we're not sure. But when it comes to Lucy Connelly, she did exactly the same. She got 31 months because of him. He put her away for 31 months. Where's the difference? Should we put Lord Hermer away now for 31 months? OK, great show. Thanks, Mike.
Jay, thank you very much indeed. Well, certainly Chris Parry said that he believes that what Lord Hermer said was just as much hate speech as anything else that anybody says when they don't just write something down. But he actually said it out loud in public in front of a load of people. One here from Kevin in Barnstable. I welcome Chris Philp's suggestion about the fishing licences, but that was obvious to little old me a fortnight ago. One thing is for sure, Starmer should resign and hand over to a war Prime Minister to deal with these illegal invaders, because that is what they are. And one here from Paul in York. He says, morning, I served 33 years in the prison service. I'm of the opinion that due to very poor vetting and staff retention, organised crime groups are employing people to join the service for their own aims. Certainly looks like that, because there's a lot of very strange things going on in prison these days, from people having sex with the guards to smoking cigarettes and drugs being brought in on drones, people making weapons and stabbing officers all over the place. Absolutely extraordinary. People being allowed into kitchens to cook boiling oil that they can throw over the guards. It's all very strange. It's coming up to 10 minutes to 9. Coming up, we're going to speak to Mike Neville about the police needing more cash. So if you're a criminal now, you might as well just enjoy yourself because, one, you're not going to go to prison. If you do go to prison, you're going to get let out. And then when you get let out, you're never getting back in.
So the majority of horrible crime, and I'm sure Will attest to this, is committed by a minority of people, right? When it comes to rape and violence, robbery and so on. So if the police aren't currently seen on the streets anyway, detection rates plummet, crime goes up and up and up. When you then allow back out a huge number of people that are basically wrong-uns and are going to perpetuate loads more crime...
Exactly.
I think it might be a recipe for some kind of disaster.
I think it would be.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. This from Natasha. Mike, does anyone else feel the intense rage at the utter helplessness I feel and not being able to do anything about this government's refusal to stop these illegal migrants? This country is being destroyed. Why don't they do anything? And Margaret says, 18 boats, almost 1,200 crossing the Channel. Where is Yvette Cooper? Nowhere to be seen. She and Starmer need to get on TV and address this major crisis. They haven't got a clue. And then she says, P.S. Starmer will not sack his BFF ever. I suspect he will not. Before we talk to Mike Neville, retired Scotland Yard detective, let's have a look at something that came across our desks at the weekend, and it is, of course, the return of the climate change goblin, who is known, of course, for one thing. Have a look at this.
Hello, I am currently standing on the Madeleine, the ship that on Sunday, June 1st, will attempt to again sail towards Gaza and to try to break the siege and open up a humanitarian corridor by delivering aid, like even if the odds are against us, to try to protest and do everything we can to stand against Israel's atrocities and war crimes and to support and stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine. So keep your eyes on deck, continue flooding the streets, organize, boycott and do everything in your power to stand for Palestine.
Yeah, Greta Thunberg now has forgotten about climate change. It's not important anymore. Now it's all about Palestine. Marvellous, isn't it? Mike Neville's here, retired Scotland Yard detective. Mike, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
So, here we are again, being told by the government one thing's going to happen and being told by everybody else that it isn't going to happen. Basically, police forces want more taxpayers' cash to fight crime because they say they haven't got enough. But they're still spending quite a lot of money on the stuff they shouldn't be spending it on.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, the reports show that millions and millions of pounds are spent on diversity officers and training. And I think that the senior officers have completely lost touch. If you looked recently, there was an officer called PC Lorne Castle who was sacked in Dorset for being rude to a prisoner he'd got hold of and arrested. This was an officer who'd been commended twice for saving lives. Right. And the assistant chief constable said that the community will be very concerned about this. But the community would be concerned, I would suggest, he was being sacked. So they just seem to live in their own little world where they spend all this money. And my concern is, Mike, if we give the police more money, then it must be given with clear guidelines that you're going to use this to prevent and detect crime. Now, for example, every police force is checked. It was called a peel inspection. It's done every 3 or 4 years. And two-thirds of the 43 police forces are either inadequate or need improvement when it comes to investigating crime. Only one of them was found to be good. None of them are excellent. And they need to refocus on that
that key mission that the public want them to solve crimes and prevent crimes occurring in the first place.
Yeah, exactly right. And what the Sun investigation has shown this weekend is that in the past year, the Met has spent 3.6 million, West Yorkshire Police blew over 1 million, West Midlands Police paid out more than 200,000, Greater Manchester Police 335,000, all money spent on diversity, equality and inclusion roles, all of which would have paid for an awful lot more bobbies on the beat.
It's absolutely right. In the Metropolitan Police, you have a commander, the equivalent of an assistant chief constable in the constabularies, who's in charge of just diversity and 20 or more staff. Would the people of London rather have those officers on on some specialist burglary team, or catching rapists, robbers and thieves? And I keep saying this and I keep banging on about this, but no one has ever said to me, a member of the public has never said, I didn't like the colour, sex or sexuality of the officer who came to help me. What they say to me is, I got an awful service. My house was burgled, the police did nothing. My car was broken into underneath a CCTV camera, they never reviewed the footage. Or somebody like yourself who says, you know, somebody snatched my phone, I went up to the police and they said, oh, can you report it online? Not get in the van, sir, and I'll drive you around and I'll see if I can catch this criminal. So there's a complete lack of focus. The lack of focus comes from the top. They're the people who decide who the money goes, but that permeates it all the way down to the bottom, where officers are not focused on what they should be focused on.
No, of course. I mean, Kevin O'Sullivan did a great story the other night in which it said that all of the police vans and cars that pitched up in Liverpool after that terrible situation with the parade, they all had Black Lives Matter written on them. And it was kind of like, well, what's that for? And the police answer was, it's very important that we have good community relations with the community, and so that's why we put these things on the vans.
And again, how many members of the black community would say that's absolute nonsense? If we could actually jam people who are just black into one big bag. I mean, most of the black friends I've said, well, I really don't care about that. I just care that the police turn up when me or my friends or family, or if they're black or white, get murdered, stabbed, their phones get stolen, or somebody gets raped. That's what people expect. But what you have, I mean, Merseyside police are offenders for this. They're the ones who put out the
offensive, the post that was wrong. Absolutely right. Listen, Mike, sorry, we've got to run. We're running out of time. Good to talk to you, though. Thanks very much indeed. Mike Neville. Coming up, Isabel Oakeshott in the next hour.
I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. We will deliver our commitment to spend 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we will bring it forward so we reach that level in 2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sent his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 9. It is Monday, the 2nd of June. Welcome to a brand new week, a brand new month, a brand new day. The sun is shining, but it's not going to be doing that for too much longer, I fear. There's a lot of rain forecast for this week, even though we're being told that June is likely to be a scorcher. We could be getting temperatures as high as 30 degrees, so it could be lovely if you're sitting around at home wondering what to do with yourselves because you haven't got enough money to go out and spend anything. You can't go on holiday, haven't got enough money. You can't go to the shops, haven't got enough money. You can't even put the heating on, you haven't got enough money. You certainly can't put the air conditioning on because you haven't got enough money. Now it looks as though they might be deciding to tax the water that you use. So you won't be having a bath either because you haven't got enough money. I mean, that is unfortunately the current state of play in this country. But don't worry, Keir Starmer's got an idea. He's going to have a strategic defence review in which he's going to promise to build loads of really, really nice shiny submarines and build lots of long-range missiles. Pip! He's looking out to sea. What's he seeing? He's seeing nothing but migrants coming ashore by the dozen, by the hundred. 1,194 of them came over on Saturday, completely unabated by Border Force, in fact aided by Border Force, who managed to pick them up in the middle of the channel after they were waved away by the French gendarmerie. We're very happy to see them go. Au revoir, mes amis. We won't see you again soon. It won't be a bientôt, I'm afraid. It'll be arrivederci. So we've now got another 1,200 migrants in Britain, which is almost the same number of children that were born on the same day. 1,600 were born on Saturday. 1,100 migrants came in. So you do the maths. You can soon find out what's going on. Elizabeth Oakeshot's here. We'll be talking to her about that. But also, on a strategic defence review, Starmer says they're going to be doing lots and lots of things in the next Parliament. 3% of GDP, very possibly. Building some submarines, not sure how many. We're going to be giving money to the munitions companies, we don't know how much. We're going to be employing loads more people to build more missiles, don't know how many. There's an awful lot of questions, more than there are answers. 14,520 migrants have arrived in this country illegally on small boats since January, right? So that's where we are. It looks as though it could be 50,000 by the time Labour have been in power for 1 year. Meanwhile, they still trail reform in the polls. It's 365 days since Nigel Farage decided to run for a seat in Clacton and win it. Absolutely extraordinary times. Big piece by Harry Cole in The Sun this morning. We'll be talking about Lord Hermer as well, Starmer's best mate, who's up to no good once again. He's in trouble on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. And also, why on earth are we still doing a deal with the European Union on fisheries, giving all the fish away, when they won't even stop one migrant coming this way? Absolutely extraordinary stuff. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. We've got a voice note from Paul.
Good morning, Mike. Paul up in Hartlepool. It's okay you showing that clip of Starmer standing on the casing of a Trident submarine, but I can tell you as a former submariner, I've opened the whole Kingston valves, flooded the ballast tanks and dived that submarine pretty damn quick. Thanks, Mike. Great show. Good morning.
Paul, you obviously know more about submarines than Keir Starmer does, that's for sure. Here we are. Since we're talking about Keir Starmer, since we're talking about the smuggling gangs, why don't we have a quick look at what Starmer said he would do about smashing them?
You will have helped to smash the gangs, secure our borders, and save countless lives. Smash the criminal gangs, and they are criminal gangs, that are running this vile trade and putting people in the boats. Take those gangs down. I think smashing the gangs that are taking people's money is a deterrent. I think have to smash those gangs. The only way to stop that is to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade. Smash the gangs.
Yeah, or not, perhaps. Isabel Oakeshot's here. Very good morning to you, Isabel.
Oh, I can't get enough of that clip. Literally, I'm happy to watch that clip every day because he just looks such a complete muppet, doesn't he?
He really does.
They've not smashed any gangs, and you know this whole thing about new subs that we're ordering. Great, you know I'm all in favour of boosting our defences, but none of it is going to make any odds as far as the vote is concerned. As long as the dinghies keep on coming, they won't care if we've got more submarines. Unless the submarines are actually doing something to stop the dinghies, then it's completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
You know, what people see is boatloads of foreigners coming over who are going to be dependent on the British taxpayer. And, you know, these boats they're obviously not packed with people fleeing war and terror. They're all young men of fighting age, of an age where they could actually be contributing something to their own home country, and in the end we're going to have to pay for them. And this is going to be a total and utter political crisis for Keir Starmer as his premiership goes on. I don't know how much longer he can keep on saying he's going to smash the gangs and that not happen.
I know, it's ridiculous now, but almost everything he says now is a sort of parody of Keir Starmer because, you know, like we've got his little tribute that he put out the weekend saying, you know, what is it, secure at home and strong abroad. And I'm like, you know, secure at home. He literally had his own house firebombed. You know, we've got people coming in 10 to the dozen without being stopped. I mean, maybe the best use for the submarines would be to put them in the channel and to maybe attach by rope these boats and tow them back to France with them.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that really the submarines would be a great story if they could do something to stop the boats.
Right.
But what is the point of focusing on that when you've got such an obvious problem which is so completely resolvable? I mean, I find it astonishing that the French police are just happy to not only just stand on the beaches there taking a few pictures, you know, of migrants as they're waved over to the UK, but they also routinely drive past the boats when the boats are up on land being prepared. You know, there won't necessarily be any vile people smugglers near those vessels, but they are in wait, they're in position on dry land. Why are the French police not simply disabling those vessels? It's not really hard, is it? You know, I'm pretty sure I could do a fair bit of damage with a pair of scissors.
Right.
You can get an awful lot of pairs of strong slashing objects for the amount of money that we have given the French. So why aren't they actually disabling the vessels before they have a chance to be used rather than just driving past them?
No, exactly right. We'll have a look at this little clip as well. This is Keir Starmer when they arrested one person, right? And that's the sole effort that they've managed to make since they've been in power. Have a look.
It is good news that today a man suspected of being a significant supplier of small boat equipment has been arrested. Criminal gangs have been getting away with this for far too long. I want to thank the UK National Crime Agency, along with their Dutch and Belgian counterparts, for all their hard work and their crucial role in this investigation. It's exactly what we want to see. And it shows that our approach of working with international partners to smash the people smuggling gangs is bearing fruit. In just over 4 months since the election, we've rapidly set up a new border security command, bringing together key agencies to disrupt people smuggling gangs.
He managed to get it right at the end. Here's my question, right? That was in November when they arrested one guy who supposedly was a significant player in the boat part smuggling business. How have they not managed to arrest anybody else since November? 6 months later, they still haven't got any leads from this guy to go and round anybody else up.
I mean, that is so pathetic. You know, announcing you've arrested, not even charged, by the way, just arrested. You've hauled in one person. Brilliant. Well done, guys. I would have said maybe hold off, you know, as a comms expert, communications, maybe hold off, you know, holding your your own self-congratulation party until you've actually times that by at least 10, but ideally 100. You know, if he told me that if he'd announced that they've managed to haul in 100 people smugglers, then maybe I might think that might make some tiny little dent in what is a massive global operation here. One guy, you know, this isn't just some small little outfit standing on the beach down there, you know, a couple of blokes who are touting tickets over the channel. This is a huge international network which goes all the way, traces all the way to the manufacturers of these illegal vessels over in China, and those manufacturers, the government actually knows right down to where those manufacturers are, but obviously aren't doing anything about that either.
No, exactly right. I mean, he's never been named, this 44-year-old Turkish man who was arrested in Amsterdam. So presumably they're still questioning him. 6 months have passed. I mean, you'd think there'd be a bit more news made available since then, but no. It's a bit like, you know, Rudy Giuliani back in the 80s saying he's going to smash the mafia and then going to arrest some bloke in an Italian restaurant in Little Italy and saying, you know, well, that's a good start, isn't it? Well, not really, no. You have to get the guys into court. You have to actually, you know, prosecute them and put them away. That's how you stop people smuggling gangs. You know, you don't, like, just get one guy and then never charge him or name him.
I just don't know how much more, you know, British voters can take as they see these scenes. And people feel very disempowered. You know, they want to do something. They feel that we are being invaded, which effectively we are. They feel they're going to have to pick up the tab for a great deal of money, which they are. And this is now affecting pretty much every town, every community, as more and more properties are turned over to migrant accommodation. And there's a fair few people who are making a pretty penny out of this. It must be tremendously tempting. I'm sure it is. You know, when you've got a slightly down, well, very down market hotel that's not doing very well in a not particularly popular tourist spot, and along comes the government in the form of Serco and says, we'll offer you thousands of pounds a week to turn your little not very, you know, your modest property over to migrant accommodation. I get it. Of course it's tempting, but it's also incredibly unethical because that money they're making is off the back of the British taxpayer.
Of course. And the same goes for the private accommodations that are now being offered, because you've got, you know, again, what you might call unscrupulous landlords who are saying, oh, great, we get 5 years income. We'll turn not only the house that I've got into rental accommodation for asylum seekers, but we'll make it into a multiple occupancy property, an HMO, I think they call them, where we'll be able to get sort of 15 people into a place where you could normally only get about 7 or 8. So, I mean, it's trebles all round for these guys.
It completely is. And I think, you know, we've talked about this before. There are a few very honourable landlords who've said, actually, you know, Serco came along or some other agency came along and offered me literally millions to do this. And I decided I wasn't going to do it because it is simply wrong to make money from fueling this industry. And if people took a collective stance, then maybe the government would finally get the message that the answer to this problem isn't to provide ever more accommodation, it's to stop the demand.
Yeah, exactly right. Because you put out a tweet yesterday in which it said each migrant who crosses the channel today will cost taxpayers £40,000 a year. You know, and that's when you add up the numbers, just even on what are the numbers of people that came on Saturday, it's prodigious, isn't it?
Well, it's when people look, I mean, a lot of our listeners may be running small businesses. They do their own self-assessment, and they know how much they have to fork out at the end of when self-assessment looms at the end of January. You know, you're transferring a horrible amount of money to HMRC, and you know, £40,000 is a lot more, far more than most people pay in a single tax year, because the average income is around 40,000. So if you think about it, for most of our listeners, you know, basically all their annual tax and more is going to support a single one of these people who are coming across in a boat.
Yeah, it is absolutely shocking. Let's change tack slightly. Starmer referred this morning in an interview to the BBC that he can't give a date as to when the UK will spend 3% of their GDP on defence. Once again, it's become an ambition rather than an actual promise and a target. We're hoping, he says, by the next Parliament. But they won't be in charge of the next Parliament. That's pretty clear, isn't it?
That's what I thought. Yeah, I saw. Yeah, it's our ambition at the end of the next Parliament. I thought, yeah, good luck with that, guys. I'm not sure you're actually going to be there to deliver on that ambition. I mean, if ever the last couple of years have shown the importance of bolstering our defences, then, you know, you'd think that that message was being heard loud and clear. And it seems that it is. You know, this government has said they're going to put more into our national spending on defence, but the economy isn't really growing very impressively, and so the more the economy flatlines, the less we're actually going to get for our money, because inflation affects defence procurement hugely. You know, actually disproportionately. Inflation in defence procurement doesn't go along with normal inflation. It's higher than that. So if the economy's not growing and defence procurement inflation is increasing, we're going to be getting an awful lot as a nation less for our money as time goes on.
Yeah, and that's indeed something that Chris Parry pointed out as well when I had him on earlier. He said also, as soon as you mention this fact that you're going to spend more money in procurement, in defence, the defence procurement companies and the ballistics manufacturers and all the rest of it just put their prices up.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. I mean, it's a while since I've looked at this, but in general, I think that the prices go up by sort of somewhere between 9 and 11% a year on these big projects. And you can imagine with these new subs that they're supposedly commissioning, I mean, perish the thought of how much the prices of those will alter as the project drags on. I mean, the defence, those in the industry, but also actually those in the armed forces, the top brass, have a terrible habit of kind of gold plating things as the project goes along. So something that starts off being X amount of money, as time goes by, it all takes absolutely ages, and the whole thing gets more and more expensive.
Yeah, one final question for you. Lord Hermer, front page of Telegraph today, refused to review unduly lenient sentences given to a rapist, a paedophile and a terrorist fundraiser, who all got slightly lower sentences than Lucy Connelly got, for whom he refused to help and refused to have a look at the second, a lesser sentence for her. And he signed off on the prosecution of Lucy Connelly, as it turns out.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting story. You know, he was in a position to review those sentences which were unduly lenient. You said that some of those individuals that you talked about got slightly less sentences than Lucy Connelly. Well, very significantly. I mean, at least one of those was given a suspended sentence. Yeah. And I think there was a rapist in amongst them who got away with only a few months in jail. And yet somehow or other, this government continues to insist that over 2 years prison sentence for a tweet that was up for a few hours is not manifestly excessive. This guy's judgment is all over the place.
It really is, and it's two-tier justice, clearly, and he's very much influenced by his background as a human rights lawyer, representing the likes of Jerry Adams and various other characters, and wanting to sell off the Chagos Islands. I mean, does he survive this, do you think?
Well, I mean, he got into hot water over this whole Nazi slur. Yeah. I mean, I've never been one for, you know, we've got to be consistent, and I wouldn't have called for him to resign over that comment. I know some have, but I do think that any senior political figure that invokes the Nazis or Hitler is not really fit to be in that position on the basis of judgment alone. It's not about whether it causes offence. It's just so stupid and so limited and so juvenile. Always to reach for the Nazi Hitler analogy. Guys, it's time to get a bit better and brighter than that. You know, don't use that analogy. No good ever comes of it. And I just think this guy is just, I feel that we all deserve better from someone in such a powerful position. than someone who uses those types of analogies and has that level of misjudgment when it comes to cases of such importance as Connelly's.
Yeah, I think so. Good to talk to you, Isabel Oakeshott. Thank you very much indeed. Isabel Oakeshott Talks international editor. All these clips of this Muppet Starmer, says Lee from South Wales. He can't even do one speech without reading off a sheet. Even then he says smuggling. So illegal immigration is now more than net migration was before Blair. Wow. And Maggie in London, this absolute clown, is always looking down at notes, and even then, he can't get it right. Unlike Nigel Farage, who speaks from the heart, so doesn't need any notes, Keir Starmer is a spineless leader, says Maggie in London. Absolutely right. Let's get a voice note from Kitty on public sector waste.
Good morning, Mike and team. It's Kitty from Kent here. So I switched to working in the public sector a few years ago, and on a daily basis, I am just astounded by the lack of accountability everywhere, the incompetence, the inexperience by those in charge. And unfortunately for us, the Liberals and the lefties only ever realise how wrong they've got it when it is far, far too late. Personally, I am terrified for the future of our country. I live out on the coast and I see it on a daily basis. It's just horrendous.
It really is. Steve says Hermer is supposedly a top legal brain who's used to preparing and presenting cases. To say he regrets his words and hadn't thought long and hard about his Nazi speech is cobblers. I couldn't agree more. 9:22.
Don't you realise how you've embarrassed us? Trump is evil.
They were saying that, yeah.
Yes, they were saying that. And Elon was saying that, and he's evil, and you know, you're also evil to
support him. How has it gone so much full circle? What's his journey since then?
They experienced the Biden presidency. And when they experienced the Biden presidency, they realized that this group of people were out to destroy everything of value in the United States, including their own businesses.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:25. I'm Mike Graham. Talking of parking and disabled badges, blue badges. Charlotte from Yorkshire says this. Mike, I've had 2 parking tickets while using a blue badge. One was on a double yellow line. You can only park for 3 hours with a blue badge on a double yellow line. The other was in a car park. Blue badge holders were not exempt from paying, which is more and more common. You have to read the sign every time as regulations keep changing. And one from Adrian who says, Mike, I took my disabled mother to see a friend in Westminster. We used her disabled badge to park in a small square. There was a PCN on the car. When I queried it, I was told they have their own purple badge scheme and don't recognise the blue badge. This was a few years ago, so things may have changed. I listen every day. Thank you, Adrian. I don't know about that. But there's clearly a lot of differences in different parts of the country, depending on whether you've got a disabled badge or not, and where you can park and what you can do with it. Let's get a voice note from Mark.
Morning, Mike. It's Mark in Lancashire. These blokes coming across on the dinghies, I'm sure it's got to be statistically correct that at least 1 in 1,000 of them will be a terrorist with bad intentions for our country and bad intentions, violent intentions for our people. So if we've got 50,000, 1 in 1,000's a violent terrorists, that's 50 terrorists. The security services have got to get lucky 50 times catching them. They've only got to get lucky once, and that's it. They need to do something about it. It's absolutely ridiculous and very, very dangerous.
Exactly right. And even if those numbers are not absolutely what they are purported to be, as you say, it might not be 1 in 1,000, it might be 1 in 2,000, it might be 1 in 500. You just don't really know. Fact is, we don't know who a lot of them are. So there could be many more people who wish to do us harm, and even if they're not thinking of committing terrorist acts, they could be just wanting to commit criminal acts. And the idea that we simply are allowing anyone that turns up into the country is bonkers, just mad. We're going to talk to John Dunn in a moment, Director General of the UK Vaping Industry Association, because of course non-disposable or disposable vapes, I should say, are now illegal in this country, one-time use only. But first, before that, we're giving you the chance to win FIFA Club World Cup final tickets thanks to our friends at DAZN. Here's everything you need to know.
Hi, it's Jim White here. Here at talkSPORT, we're gearing up for the Club World Cup in the United States. And to celebrate, we've got 2 tickets to the final in New York on July the 13th to give away. We'll sort flights, accommodation, and give you £5 spending money to spend however you like. 18 plus, UK excluding Northern Ireland. All you have to do to enter is text the word football to 83338 by the 13th of June at 11 p.m. and you're in the draw. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission or send your name and number by post to Club World Cup Final Prize Draw, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on June the 18th.
This is a TalkSPORT limited competition run on TalkSPORT Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com. How about this from Mark? Royal Navy fast boats with radar patrolling the edge of UK waters and blocking the progress of the boats until they turn back is another obvious answer. French Coast Guards will need to have to deal with them if they run out of fuel. Yeah, that's another thought. Let's talk now, though, about vapes. John Dunn, Director General of the UK Vaping Industry Association. And basically, the vaping business has now changed because it's now illegal to sell one-use only vapes. I think I'm right in saying. John, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, not bad at all. Somebody told me last week that all the shops that were selling these one-time use only vapes were selling them at a massive discount because they knew that after Sunday they wouldn't be able to sell them anymore. So it was a bit of a sort of backfired announcement, really, because there was more and more of these things sold than ever, I think.
Yeah, we saw some massive stockpiling over the weekend, which we were expecting. But nothing really about this bill, in our opinion, is going to solve very much. The devices that consumers are seeing now, for the most part, look very similar to the devices that were on sale on Sunday.
Right.
The only difference is that now they've replaced the tank with a pod system. They've got a rechargeable battery. But one of the key issues is that consumers don't understand that these products are highly recyclable. So nothing in this bill changes the way consumers act with these products. They're still going to throw them away today like they did yesterday because nothing's been done.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there are lots of ways around it, it seems to me, as well, because you can call something by another name, can't you? It doesn't have to be called a vape. It can be called, you know, a sort of, I don't know, a part-time smoking device or something. You can make up anything you like. And it ends up breaking or ends up getting around the rules. Is that right?
No, unfortunately, that's not the case. Any of the devices that are on sale legally today have to be rechargeable, they have to be refillable, and the coil has to be able to be changed. It doesn't matter what you call them.
Yeah.
All the products have to be approved by the MHRA. And they've also now included products that don't contain nicotine, which are outside of current legislation. So that's a huge change there. But the problem is, this is going to be a nightmare for trading standards to enforce. We're already looking at websites, for instance, on Amazon and some online retailers, and they're still selling disposables out there. They're still available. You know, the other area where they wanted to curb was youth appeal and youth uptake of these products.
Yeah,
nothing's changed there. Nothing's going to change on youth appeal. And this is one of the reasons why we've been pushing for licensing, for instance, of vape retailers and increased fines up to £10,000 for people caught selling to minors. Now, that type of action would really, really help.
Yeah, but I mean, considering that we haven't got enough police to police the streets as it is, who are you going to use? I mean, have you got enough agents to go and visit all these shops?
Well, the agency that deals with that is Trading Standards, but they're woefully underfunded.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring in the licensing scheme, because we reckon that would raise from companies £50 million a year. They could be ring-fenced just for Trading Standards to enforce in our industry. So it would almost be a self-paying endeavour.
Right. Well, that sounds far too sensible for any government to actually take you up on. But I mean, what do you think is going to be the sort of the environment and the way it's all going to look, say, in about a month's time when it all settles down? Will there still be an awful lot of shops breaking the law, an awful lot of places where you can still get these banned vapes?
I think we're going to see a huge black market in this product. As you said, we're already seeing that some rogue retailers are still selling these products illegally. We're not going to see the enforcement that is needed. The fines are in the region of £200. That's ridiculous. Nobody's going to take that seriously. So we really need to take a look at this again. If they really wanted to help the environment, what they should have done was getting rid of the 2 milliliter tank size and make that 10 milliliters, for instance. Then you would have 80% less plastic. You would have one battery instead of 5.
Right.
And that would have been a sensible solution to this issue.
And is most of this stuff coming in from places like China? Where's most of these vapes being made?
Well, a lot of the brands are European or British. Most of these products are made in an area called Shenzhen in China. That's where the technology and the factories are located. And then they're just rebranded or redesigned by other companies.
So, yeah, so inevitably most of the money will end up in China.
At least on the production side, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, maybe we should introduce some tariffs. We have a word with Donald Trump. It could make them a bit more expensive.
The only problem with that is then you're really kind of pushing against, you know, people who are trying to quit smoking and are trying to do things better for their lives. So I don't think that would have a really good benefit either.
No, I guess that's the problem. Well, we'll keep watching this space. John, thanks very much indeed. John Dunn, Director General of the UK Vaping Industry Association. Sounds to me as though there's plenty of loopholes and there's plenty of places where you're going to be able to buy much of this so-called, you know, underground vaping equipment now, because if it's not refillable, it's now illegal. But loads of people bought them because they were discounted massively because they were about to become illegal. So now you'll get them on the black market instead. This one here from somebody who doesn't give a name. What is the fine imposed on a truck driver if they unwittingly bring an illegal immigrant across the channel? That fine should be imposed for each and every channel crossing migrant onto the heads of Border Force, the Home Secretary and the head of the RNLI. They are not preventing illegal entry into the country. They are actively facilitating illegal migrants. I think that's right. Who signs off Lindsay Hoyle's expenses? They should also be held to account, says Frank in Bromley. This is on the news that Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House, has not only spent £300,000 of our money, but we found out today that he spent £5,500 just island hopping in the Caribbean between Anguilla and Antigua and Montserrat. Very nice part of the world, but unfortunately for him, there's not always a direct plane that you can get. So he had to hire private planes to take him and his wife and a couple of other people just around and about visiting. Can you imagine? The Speaker of the Houses of Parliament in Montserrat wants to see my learned friend, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, to ask him about how he keeps that rabble in order. It's nice work if you can get it, isn't it? Looking at Greta Thunberg's boat, says Alan Middlesbrough, it doesn't look as if it's powered by wind or solar. Yeah, I don't think so. Sarah in Peterborough, so all the Russians would have to do is send troops to France and put soldiers on a dinghy and send them over the channel. We are the laughing stock of the entire world. And on the waterfront, we were saying there might be some tax coming on water. Jamie in Hornchurch says, on Bath, the youngest of 3 will be using third-hand bath water. Where is the progress with these morons? They're basically going to be saying, yeah, if you have a lot of baths and you have a lot of water usage, we might have to charge you more money for the water, for heaven's sake. Let's get a voice note from Thelma.
Hi, Mike. This is Starmer from Gloucestershire. Just to let you know that I've had an email from my local wetland centre, a very famous one, and they're talking about Pride, as it's Pride Month, in nature. And this will feature queer ecology walks, drag queen story time, rainbow nature trail, and more. Why the hell they need a drag queen at a wetland centre is absolutely beyond me. Great show as always. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, what are they wasting all this money on for? The drag queen wetland centre, for heaven's sake. Ermin says this. Good afternoon from Singapore, Mike. According to the stats shown on the screen a few minutes ago, Britain is only a few dinghies short of 38,000 illegal immigrants, which is the size of an entire town. Towns need infrastructure and amenities to function properly. Starmer stopped the Rwanda deal, effectively inviting the very same gangs to traffic people while claiming he was going to smash it. He is a truly abhorrent individual. He really is. And here's somebody listening in Queensland, Australia. And yes, it probably is better here. John is an expat, a proud West Countryman. Lots of you listening from all parts of the world, all corners of the globe. The home common sense spreads as we go. It's 9:37. Coming up, Catherine Porter's going to join us. We've got to talk about wind.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:39. I'm Mike Graham. Martha in the Dordogne says this from France. Bonjour, Mike. She says, I have the utmost respect for the British people. I'm afraid this country doesn't. You are being laughed at, not just in France, but around Europe. You have been weakened, and I'm very sorry for you. Well, if I was the French, I'd be laughing as well, unfortunately, because we've got the world's worst government. And Janice in Perth, there's a lot of this going on today. Just a thought on the submarines. Where are they proposing to base them? Here in Scotland, you need a deep channel to accommodate them when they come in for routine maintenance. And where are all those nuclear warheads going to be stored? More than we already have here? Why not paint a large target on us? Perth in Scotland, obviously, that is, rather than Perth in any other part of the world. And Neil says, Mike, don't forget that Martin Hewitt lives in Finland. Is he maybe watching the wrong piece of water? Yeah, maybe. He's watching to see if any of the Russians are coming across into Finland. Catherine Porter's here, independent energy analyst, though, because as you might suspect, not very many days go by before Ed Miliband's coming after you for more money. Very good morning to you, Catherine. It turns out that Ed Miliband has got his eyes now on a 15% net zero tax on your gas bill because apparently green levies need to be overhauled because clearly they haven't got enough money.
Well, I think the idea is to move the levies off electricity and onto gas.
Yeah.
The levies need moving away from electricity, but the place for them to go is into taxation, partly because having them on energy bills is extremely regressive, and partly because if they were collected through the Treasury, then there would be proper scrutiny of them, and there would be some oversight to see if there's indeed value for money, which is doubtful.
Well, exactly. But apparently he not only wants to tax us more, he wants to actually move the money so that it can be then channeled into boosting sales of heat pumps, because he hopes that people will get fed up of paying so much money for their gas bill that heat pumps might look like a cheaper option. But whenever I talk to anybody about heat pumps, they're certainly not a cheaper option.
No, they're not. And I mean, this whole idea really makes no sense. We also had reports over the weekend that the grants available for heat pumps are going to be reduced as part of the spending review. So at the very moment he's talking about making gas more expensive to try and get people onto heat pumps, those heat pumps will become a lot more expensive. And the people who will suffer from all of this are the people in fuel poverty who are already making choices between heating and eating. There'll be far more people caught in that trap, not able to afford a heat pump and not able to afford the gas to heat their homes. And this is no joke. Until the ONS stopped publishing these data a couple of years ago, we were seeing on average 6,000 to 8,000 people dying as a result of fuel poverty every winter, which is a pretty disgraceful statistic.
It really is.
And it's kind of convenient that they've stopped reporting on these data, because I'm pretty sure those numbers will have gone up since then.
Yeah, I'm sure, particularly over the past winter when, you know, it wasn't as cold as it could have been, but it was certainly chilly on some of the weeks that we had, and many people just not being able to afford to pay the bill for fear, or not to put the electricity on for fear of how much the bill would be.
Exactly, and so this move will harm the most vulnerable people in society, and even if it was successful, and this is the part that's really pernicious about this, if it was successful in moving some people off gas, that would mean that the people left would have an even larger burden to pay. So the poorest would end up paying far more than their fair share of these levies and carbon taxes, and that's just simply unfair.
Right. And one of the things that I find particularly disingenuous about the conversations around heat pumps, particularly when they're coming from, you know, sort of protagonists who want you to get one, is they never tell you about the ongoing cost. You know, they sort of make out that if you put one of these things in, oh, it's a very, very, very good system, it's all integrated, it's kind of, you know, solid state, it works on its own, you don't have to do anything to it once it's in, when in fact the maintenance of it is quite expensive. The amount of digging and sort of removing of things in your house that you have to do is very disruptive. You have to put in new radiators, generally speaking. You sometimes have to put in new pipes. You might have to completely redo, you know, your entire heating system. You might have to dig something up in the garden. You know, it's very, very expensive and disruptive.
Yeah, and you might need to upgrade your insulation because you're moving from high-grade heat with your boiler to low-grade heat with a heat pump. And a lot of people don't use their heat pumps correctly. Really, you need to keep the heat pump on all the time, rather than just at the times that you need the heating. So quite often, the most efficient thing to do is to heat your house when you're not in it, which is counterintuitive. These are not good systems. And, you know, when people say, oh, you know, they work really well in cold weather, just look at Scandinavia. People in Scandinavia usually have two forms of heating in their homes, and more people have a wood-burning stove than have a heat pump. So there's a lot of misinformation being given to people around heat pumps, and they're just not going to work for everybody. And in fact, there'll be lots of people for whom they don't work at all. And the cost of that upfront installation and ongoing maintenance are both significant barriers.
Yeah, thousands of pounds. Well, we call it propaganda. Might as well call it what it is. Let's have a look at Ed Miliband talking about reducing the cost of your energy. This is from last year.
We set that out for 2030. It was an independent set of modelling that said that bills could go down by up to £300. And what's important, Susanna, is that the report I referred to last week from the energy system operator confirms that not only is our target achievable, but it will lead to lower costs of electricity.
So in 6 years' time, our bills will go down by £300. How much are they going to have gone up by that point?
An answer came there none. So this is the famous £300 that we'd all be better off promise that came in sort of June, back end of June, early part of July last year, which as the year went on sort of unravelled to the point where not only was it possibly £300 over the life of your heat pump, but possibly £300 by 2030, and then eventually they just stopped talking about it altogether.
Well, what was really dishonest about all of that as well is the reference price that they used was one of the highest prices. The price had already come down about £300 by the time that report was published, just because gas prices fell. So the whole thing was completely dishonest right from the outset. And all I can really say is that by 2030, let's hope that this current Energy Secretary is no longer in post.
Yes. Very good to hear. One final story for you today. Apparently Wes Streeting wanted to make all NHS ambulances 100% electric. I mean, you think he might have other things to fix in the NHS, like, you know, waiting times, you know, cancer detection rates, you know, the time it takes for you to go from one operation to the next specialist, and all of that. Maybe hospital beds, we'll put a few more of those in, maybe even repair some of the hospitals. But no, let's all make sure that we don't have any diesel ambulances. I mean, for heaven's sake, he's now going to have to abandon it because it's too expensive.
It's not just too expensive. There are large parts of the country where it simply won't work. And, you know, anybody who's had a taxi to go any long distance that was electric and then asked, oh, please, can you put the air conditioning on? And the taxi driver goes, oh, no, sorry, I can't do that because the battery might run out. Right. I mean, they know that this is really going to be unsuitable. Could an ambulance go a whole shift on one charge? What happens if they're having to be stuck waiting to offload their patients at a hospital and wanting to have heating or run life-saving equipment in the back? You know, it just seems completely impractical, and I cannot believe that our ambulance service is making a material contribution to climate change. I think they really need to sort out their priorities here. So
what you're saying is you might have an ambulance, but they couldn't put the blue light on because it might drain the battery.
Well, or they can't, you know, have the ventilator or whatever. Yeah. You know, your electric heart machines won't work because they might drain. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Defibrillator, yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah, I'd be asking, have they done a risk assessment to look at what would be the potential harm to patients from this sort of change? Because I really can't see that the possible patient harm is justified based on the potential climate impact. No, absolutely right. Ridiculous. Catherine Porter, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed, independent energy analyst. Let's get a voice note from Joanne on smashing the smuggling guns.
Morning, Mike. Joanne from Norfolk. So, on Conservative estimates, the number of migrants that came over at the weekend on Saturday, that's going to cost us somewhere in the region of £40 million. Just that one boatload. Where is the courts and where is the government on this aiding and abetting of criminal activity when you've got the RNLI, Border Force, and they actually apparently also ask fishing crews to come and help them pick these people up? Why? What? I mean, people are being fined for bringing them in on lorries and bringing them in on camper vans without their knowledge, but in some cases, but they're still getting fined. But this is happening under the government's nose and no one's doing anything about it. Come on, it's got to be a plan. There's got to be a plan. They're allowing this to happen. They don't want to stop it. They want them to keep coming. And there's got to be a reason. And the things that I'm thinking, it's not a good one. Great show. Thanks, Mike.
Joanne, thanks very much indeed. Absolutely right. Well, Keir Starmer, of course, who promises this morning that he can't give a date for when the UK will spend 3% of GDP on defence. Doesn't really know when that is. He's issued his first lie of the day. This is his tweet. It went out about 8:03 this morning. Everyone should feel safe and secure at home, which is why security is the foundation of my plan for change. My government is making serious long-term investment in our armed forces, creating thousands of jobs and supporting working people across the country. Yeah. Yay! Yay! No, it isn't. It's not doing it. Also, nobody feels safe and secure at home. The streets are not safe. The borders are not secure. You know, people are getting robbed, people are getting mugged, people are having their phones stolen, people are having their cars stolen. You know, it is not a safe country right now. This one, I'm afraid. Let's talk to Carol in Essex. Hello, Carol.
Oh, hi, Mike.
How are you doing?
Not too bad, thank you.
Good. What do you want to say?
Your previous caller mentioned the RNLI,
yeah,
and that's what I was phoning about.
Right.
It's never mentioned that the RNLI is obviously a charity.
It is.
and they get less than 1% funding from the government. So effectively, all those people who donate to the RNLI, and I'll never donate, are paying to bring these migrants over.
Yeah, it's true.
So, why are we, as a, member of public, donating to a charity to bring migrants in? And as that previous caller said, I'm not going to say what I think, but somewhere is benefiting from all this.
Yeah, somebody somewhere is benefiting from all this. I'll tell you who's benefiting from it. The people smugglers are benefiting. The hotel owners are benefiting. The people that are private landlords are benefiting. Serco, the company that's moving all these people around, is benefiting massively. There's plenty of people making money, and I think that's why it keeps happening.
Yeah. But why can't the RNLI, when they pick them up, just take them back to France?
Well, that's a very good point. And sometimes they've even picked them up in French waters and brought them here, when instead France was actually nearer.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I know, it's bonkers, absolutely bonkers. Yeah. Good to talk to you, Joanne. Sorry, not Joanne, Carol. Thank you very much indeed. In Essex, makes perfect sense. Al from Watford says, it only took 7,000 men to invade us in 1066. This year, 14,000 fighting-age men have arrived illegally on our shores. I fear for our future safety. Well, yeah. Diane in Cornwall, what would happen if the French brought the boats to the 12-mile border and we did not go out to greet them? Wouldn't the French have to escort them back? Probably. Probably. Nobody knows why. We are so complicit in helping them get here. There is some kind of law of the sea which says you can't abandon people who might be in danger, but they're not necessarily in danger, are they? This is Talk.
This is a positive action scheme, and as such, you must be from a black, Asian or minority ethnic background in order to apply. In other words, whites need not apply.
So no one at this table.
That is racist.
Correct.
Yeah. Is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's racist. The Equalities Commission would love to see that, I'm sure.
So they're not Baptist planks, but they've broken the law.
But this has been going on for a while, hasn't it?
Especially the BBC.
West Yorkshire Police have done it.
The BBC are particularly bad at this. They've done it in other areas as well. And I don't understand how they can get away with it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:55, very nearly. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here momentarily to take us into the 10 o'clock hour. And at 10:30, I think you're going to see all sorts of amazing things happening over here on the political side of life, because you've got the Strategic Defence Review coming up from Keir Starmer, but also you've got Nigel Farage speaking up in Scotland, where he's visiting ahead of that by-election in Hamilton on Thursday. Let's get a voice note from Kieran.
Captain Keith. Admiral Keith Starmer of the High Seas is now in the submarine game. Let's hope that the MOD can modify one for him to permanently inhabit. He can go live in the bottom of the sea, out of everybody's way, so we don't have to listen to his annoying voice anymore. In fact, his voice could be used as a submarine blipper. I think that would deter Russian submarines and North Korean submarines. Just a noise, just a burp, burp, burp. that would be enough. Just to get out of here, guys. We don't need to get involved. They've got a serious weapon there on that submarine.
It really is.
So look out. This won't happen, by the way. There'll be no submarines because he won't be in power. And I think you were right. It's going to be Christmas time. It'll be game over for Captain Keith, Admiral Keith of the High Seas. All the best, mate, Kieran.
Sounds more like SpongeBob, to be honest. John's in Bradford. Morning, John.
Morning to you.
What can I do for you?
I think that Starmer's not going to do anything about immigration at all. He's going to give us as many citizenship as possible, push them out to the red wall areas because they'll vote Labour. And I think that is the policy of the Labour Party.
Yeah, I mean, that would not be at all surprising. But, I mean, even he surely can't expect all of these characters who are coming in illegally to vote. They're not all going to vote, are they?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, you only say only 25% of them vote. That's a hell of a difference, isn't it?
True. Yeah, no, it's a very good point. John, thank you very much indeed. David's in Hertfordshire. David.
Hello, Mike. It's Dave from Hertfordshire.
Good morning.
I served in the infantry, right, for over 20 years. That would be the Grenadier Guards.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something now. This government ain't got a clue about defence when it comes to defence. The principal fighting part of the army is the infantry.
Yeah.
And their weapons are shoulder fired.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they seem to concentrate on these big-ticket items like Ajax and Challenger, and now they're talking submarines, what will take 10 to 15 years to build.
Yes.
It takes 30 weeks to train an infantryman, and that's just to pass out and graduate to their battalion. They spend another 20 weeks with battalion, bringing them up. That's 50 weeks, and that's a fully qualified infantryman.
Yeah.
His primary weapons are all shoulder-fired. Now, if you look into Ukraine, the primary fighting mechanism in Ukraine are infantry who are knocking out big-ticket items with 10 quid drones built in Radio Shack and shoulder-fired weapons like NLAW, Carl Gustaf 84, Javelin. These are things these are things are in production now. These are things what could be developed. These are things what
Much
could
quicker.
be rushed through production.
Yeah, and we could have our hands on them much quicker. Exactly right. It's a very good point, David. Thank you very much indeed for making it. David in Hertfordshire there. Yeah, all these big-ticket items, submarines here, submarines there, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we'll be strong at home and secure abroad, or whichever way round he keeps saying it. It doesn't really matter, does it? Julie Hartley-Brewer's here. Very good morning to you.
Very good morning. Yeah, we've got our Defence Minister on in just a couple of moments at the start of the show. That's they do like all these big things. It's all about infrastructure. We need fighting men.
Yeah.
We actually need the drones, the bullets, the guns, the actual men and women on the front line.
Yeah, the people that actually manufacture victory.
We can't defend an ally, let alone our own country right now. That's the reality. That's what we're asking.
And you can't mess about. You can't do the kind of Labour treatment on defence that they do on everything else, where you say one thing and you do something completely different.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the Tories have taken the right off the